The veil between worlds was never meant to tear. Wanda Maximoff had learned to live with grief. She'd buried her parents beneath Sokovian rubble, lost her brother to bullets meant for a world that feared them, and carried the weight of powers she barely understood. But grief, she discovered, was a living thing. It grew. It mutated. And on that October night in 1995, when her chaos magic surged in response to a nightmare she couldn't wake from, it ripped a hole through the fabric of reality itself. She fell through colors that had no names, through the spaces between dimensions where magic operated on rules that predated wands and words. The sensation was drowning and burning simultaneously, every atom of her being stretched across impossible distances. Then impact. The forbidden forest of Hogwarts shuddered as Wanda Maximoff crashed through the canopy in a cascade of crimson energy. Ancient trees bent away from her descent, their bark scorching where her chaos magic touched. She hit the forest floor hard enough to crater the earth, her red leather jacket torn, blood trickling from her nose. Above her, the October sky flickered with residual energy, reality itself trying to seal the wound she'd created. But Hogwarts felt it. The castle's wards, built over 1,000 years by the founders themselves, screamed a warning that echoed through every stone. In the headmaster's office, Albus Dumbledore's instruments erupted into shrill alarms. In the dungeons, Severus Snape's hand froze over a delicate potion as magical sensors exploded. And in the Ministry of Magic, the Department of Mysteries sensors registered an anomaly that shouldn't exist, a magical signature that matched no known classification. Wanda pushed herself to her knees, gasping. The air here tasted wrong, thick with ambient magic that felt structured, regulated, completely unlike the chaotic energy that flowed through her veins. She tried to summon her power, and red wisps flickered around her fingers before sputtering like a flame in thin air. Her chest tightened. No, no, no. She concentrated, pulling deeper. The scarlet energy responded, but sluggishly, as if moving through water instead of air. It was there. She could feel the chaos magic churning inside her. But something in this world's fundamental magical laws was interfering with her connection. A twig snapped behind her. Wanda spun, energy crackling to life around both hands despite the resistance. 3 figures emerged from the trees, a half-giant with a wild beard carrying a crossbow, and 2 centaurs with arrows already knocked. The half-giant's beetle-black eyes widened at the sight of her, taking in her strange clothing, the unnatural red glow, the crater she created. Blimey, Hagrid breathed. Yuri, not from around here, are ye? Before Wanda could respond, one of the centaurs, his coat a deep chestnut, raised his bow. The forest rejects your presence, stranger. The stars themselves recoil from what you are. I don't want trouble. Wanda's voice was steady despite her racing heart. She could feel their fear, taste it in the air like ozone before storm. I don't even know where I am. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, Hagrid said, lowering his crossbow slightly. And Yevii set off every magical alarm from here to London. The ministry'll be here any minute, and, he paused, studying her with surprising gentleness. You look lost, if you don't mind me saying it. Lost. The word struck deeper than any spell. Wanda had been lost since Sokovia, drifting between Avengers missions and sleepless nights, never quite belonging anywhere. And now she was in another world entirely, her powers compromised, with no idea how to get home. The second centaur, silver-coated and older, lowered his bow. Forenza speaks true. Whatever you are, which from elsewhere, your arrival has been felt. Those who fear power will come for you. As if summoned by his words, the sharp crack of apparition split the air. Wanda's hands ignited with chaos energy as 6 figures materialized in the clearing, all dressed in deep purple robes. They had wooden sticks, wands, she realized, pointed directly at her. By order of the Ministry of Magic, the lead wizard announced, his voice cold and officious, you are to surrender immediately for questioning regarding unlawful magical activity and suspected use of dark magic. Wanda's jaw tightened. She'd heard those words before in different languages from different governments. Hydra, the Avengers, S.H.I.E.L.D. Always someone wanting to control what they didn't understand, to cage what they feared. "I'm not going anywhere," she said quietly, and the red energy around her hands intensified. Hagrid stepped between them, massive arms spread wide. "Now hold on. She just got here. You can't just—" "Stand aside, Hagrid," the wizard snapped. "This is ministry business." His wand flicked. Stupefy. Red light shot toward Wanda. Instinct took over. Her hand swept up, and a wave of chaos magic intercepted the spell mid-flight. The two energies collided with a sound like breaking glass, and both dissipated in a shower of sparks. The ministry wizard stared, dumbfounded. Wandless magic, true wandless magic, was virtually impossible. "What are you?" one whispered. Wanda met his gaze, and for a moment, she let him see the truth of what she was, a weapon forged in grief, power incarnate, a girl who'd rewritten probability itself. The wizard stepped back. Then chaos erupted. Spells flew from all directions, stunning hexes, binding curses, cutting charms. Wanda's hands wove patterns in the air, her chaos magic deflecting what it could, but the interference was real. A purple spell slipped through her defenses and caught her shoulder. Pain lanced through her arm, and she stumbled. More apparition cracks. Reinforcements. A dozen more wizards materialized, forming a circle. Through the haze of pain and disorientation, Wanda saw a flash of long silver beard, half-moon spectacles catching the moonlight. "That will be quite enough," Albus Dumbledore said, his voice carrying an authority that froze everyone in place. He stood at the edge of the clearing, dressed in deep purple robes, his wand raised but not threatening, his blue eyes, twinkling yet sharp, fixed on Wanda with undisguised curiosity. "Headmaster," the lead ministry wizard protested, "this creature attacked." "I saw no attack, Dawlish. I saw self-defense against unwarranted aggression." Dumbledore stepped forward, and the ministry wizards parted reluctantly. "My dear," he addressed Wanda directly, "you are injured, far from home, and understandably frightened. Hogwarts offers sanctuary to those who need it. Will you accept?" Wanda studied him, her empath abilities reading the complex tapestry of his emotions. Genuine concern, intense curiosity, calculated strategy, and beneath it all, secrets. So many secrets. She'd trusted authority figures before. It rarely ended well. But she was bleeding, her powers were unstable, and she was in a world whose rules she didn't understand. She needed time, information, a chance to find a way home. "Sanctuary," she repeated slowly. "With conditions, I'm guessing." Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. "Only that you harm no students and submit to no harm yourself. A fair exchange, I believe." The ministry wizard, Dawlish, sputtered. "You can't just harbor an unregistered magical being. The minister will." "The minister," Dumbledore interrupted with steel beneath his grandfatherly tone, "does not dictate who receives refuge at Hogwarts. That authority rests with the headmaster. Unless, of course, the ministry wishes to challenge 1,000 years of tradition." Silence. Dawlish's face purpled, but he lowered his wand. "Fudge will hear about this." "I have no doubt." Dumbledore turned back to Wanda, extending his hand. "Shall we? I believe Madame Pomfrey should examine that shoulder." Wanda looked at his outstretched hand, then at the ministry wizards glaring at her with fear and suspicion, then at Hagrid's encouraging nod. She thought of Pietro telling her to trust people, to believe in something beyond survival. She took Dumbledore's hand. Red energy flickered around their joined hands, her chaos magic instinctively testing him, reading him. Dumbledore didn't flinch, though his eyebrows rose slightly. "Fascinating," he murmured. As they walked toward the castle's distant lights, Wanda cast one glance back at the crater she'd created, at the tear in reality still flickering faintly in the October sky. Somewhere beyond that tear was her world, the Avengers, her chance at redemption. But that world felt impossibly far away. And this one, with its robed wizards, its structured magic, its looming castle, promised complications she couldn't yet imagine. If you want to see more characters enter universes where they don't belong, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. The multiverse is vast, and stranger crossings await. The wind through the forbidden forest carried whispers in languages Wanda almost recognized. The centaurs watched her go, and the silver-coated one spoke softly. The stars show two paths for the Scarlet Witch. One ends in salvation, the other in a reality unmade. Wanda didn't hear him. She was already walking toward Hogwarts, toward answers, toward a fate that would force her to choose between the world she'd lost and the one she might destroy. The hospital wings smelled of antiseptic potions and clean linen, a sterile comfort that reminded Wanda too much of the medical facilities where she and Pietro had been experimented on. She sat rigidly on the edge of a bed while a stern-faced woman in healer's robes examined her shoulder with brisk efficiency. "Most unusual," Madame Pomfrey muttered, waving her wand over the injury. Golden light emanated from the tip, but where it touched Wanda's skin, it flickered and distorted, reacting to the residual chaos magic in her system. The curse should have responded to the counterhex by now. Your magical signature is interfering with the healing process. "Let me," Wanda said quietly. She placed her hand over the wound, and crimson energy seeped from her fingers into her flesh. The pain receded as her chaos magic knitted tissue and bone, operating on instinct rather than the structured spell work this world required. Within seconds, the injury had vanished. Madame Pomfrey's lips thinned into a disapproving line. Self-healing, without incantation or wand. "Headmaster, this is highly irregular." "Indeed it is, Poppy." Dumbledore stood by the window, apparently admiring the grounds, but clearly listening to every word, which makes our guest all the more remarkable. He turned, and those penetrating blue eyes found Wanda. "Perhaps, my dear, you might tell us who you are and how you came to fall quite literally from the sky." Wanda's fingers traced the edge of the bed. How much truth could she afford? In her experience, honesty made you vulnerable, but lies had a way of unraveling at the worst possible moments. "My name is Wanda Maximoff," she began carefully. "Where I come from, I'm called the Scarlet Witch. I have abilities, powers that let me manipulate energy, probability, reality itself." She met Dumbledore's gaze. "I didn't mean to come here. Something went wrong with my magic. It created a tear between worlds." "Between worlds," Dumbledore repeated thoughtfully. "Not time travel, then, but dimensional displacement. Extraordinary." He conjured a chintz armchair from nowhere and settled into it with a contented sigh. "And these powers of yours, they stem from what source?" "Not a wand, clearly. I was born with them, enhanced by experiments with an infinity stone." She saw their blank looks. "An object of immense cosmic power. The experiments killed most of the subjects. My brother and I survived. Our powers manifested." "Your brother?" Madame Pomfrey's expression softened slightly. "Dead." The word came out flat, emotionless. Wanda had learned not to let grief show. "He died saving people who hated us for what we were." A heavy silence settled over the hospital wing. Dumbledore steepled his fingers, his expression grave. "I am sorry for your loss, Miss Maximoff. Losing those we love to the fear and prejudice of others is a pain I know all too well." Something flickered in his eyes, old grief, carefully buried. "Which brings us to our present dilemma. The Ministry of Magic will not accept my word that you pose no threat. They will want you registered, monitored, possibly detained." "I won't be locked up again." Wanda's hands ignited with red energy, the instinctive response to threatened captivity. "I won't be anyone's prisoner or weapon." "Peace, child." Dumbledore raised a calming hand. "I have no intention of allowing the Ministry to imprison you. However, we must be strategic. The Minister for Magic, Cornelius Fudge, is a fearful man who values his position above truth. He has recently taken steps to deny the return of a very dangerous dark wizard named Lord Voldemort." The name made Madame Pomfrey flinch. Wanda filed that reaction away. "Fudge has installed one of his loyalists here at Hogwarts, Dolores Umbridge, as defense against the dark arts teacher and High Inquisitor," Dumbledore continued. She has been granted sweeping powers to interfere with the school's operations. Your arrival will give her ammunition to claim I am harboring dangerous elements. Then let me leave. Wanda stood. I don't need your protection. I can take care of myself. Can you? Dumbledore's question wasn't unkind, but it struck home. Forgive my bluntness, but you appeared disoriented in the forest. Your powers, formidable though they clearly are, seemed diminished. This world operates on magical principles foreign to you. Where would you go? How would you navigate a society whose basic currency and customs you don't understand? Wanda wanted to argue, but he was right. She'd felt the moment she'd arrived. Her chaos magic struggling against this reality's structured magical laws. Her connection to her power fluctuating like a radio signal fighting interference. She was vulnerable in ways she hadn't been since the experiments. What are you proposing? She asked warily. Temporary enrollment as a student. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled with what might have been mischief. You would attend classes, learn about our world's magic, and in exchange, remain under Hogwarts protection. The ministry cannot easily touch students enrolled in the school. It would also allow me to study the nature of your abilities, perhaps find a way to stabilize them, and eventually return you to your own world. You think you can send me back? I think, Dumbledore said carefully, that understanding how you arrived is the first step toward understanding how you might leave. The Department of Mysteries studies such phenomena, but they would dissect you to learn your secrets. I would prefer a more collaborative approach. Wanda paced to the window. Outside, the castle grounds stretched toward the forbidden forest, moonlight painting everything in shades of silver. Students, actual students her age, would be sleeping in their dormitories, worrying about homework and friendships and all the normal things she'd never had. The idea of pretending to be one of them felt absurd. But the alternative was running blind through a world she didn't understand, hunted by a government that feared her. At least here, she'd have time to adapt, to regain her full power, to search for a way home. What about Umbridge? She asked. You said she has power here. She won't accept a mysterious transfer, student appearing out of nowhere. Ah. Dumbledore smiled. Leave Dolores to me. I am still headmaster, and certain authorities remain mine alone. You will be sorted into a house tomorrow evening, a formality, but tradition matters here. In the meantime, you'll need a cover story. Which is? An exchange student from Durmstrang Institute, Professor McGonagall's crisp voice announced from the doorway. The deputy headmistress strode in, tartan dressing gown billowing, her expression somewhere between concerned and exasperated. Though how we'll explain your complete ignorance of basic magical protocol, I cannot imagine. Durmstrang takes a very different approach to magical education, Dumbledore said serenely. Isolated, focused on practical power rather than theory. It's plausible that Miss Maximoff would be unfamiliar with certain aspects of British wizarding culture. McGonagall's lips pursed, but she nodded. The students will talk regardless. A new fifth-year appearing midterm will cause speculation. Let them speculate, Wanda said. She'd dealt with curiosity before, with pointing and whispers. I can handle some gossip. It's not the gossip I'm worried about. McGonagall's sharp eyes assessed Wanda with the precision of someone who'd spent decades evaluating students. You carry yourself like someone who's seen combat. Real combat, not schoolyard dueling. That won't escape notice. Professor McGonagall is correct, Dumbledore interjected. You must be careful, Miss Maximoff. Hogwarts is embroiled in conflicts you don't yet understand. There are those who would seek to use your power for their own ends, and others who would destroy you to prevent such use. Trust carefully. The warning hung in the air. Wanda thought of Ultron whispering promises of peace, of Hydra's doctors smiling as they strapped her to a table, of governments worldwide debating whether enhanced individuals had rights at all. I don't trust easily, she said. Experience taught me better. Then we have something in common. Dumbledore rose from his chair, suddenly looking every one of his considerable years. I will make the arrangements. Professor McGonagall will provide you with quarters tonight and robes tomorrow. Try to rest if you can. Tomorrow will bring challenges enough. As they turned to leave, Wanda called out, "Why are you helping me?" Dumbledore paused at the door. "Because I have made too many mistakes by not helping when I could have. Because power without guidance destroys both wielder and world. And because," he glanced back, and for a moment she saw past the grandfather mask to the calculating strategist beneath, "I suspect we may need you before this year is through, Miss Maximoff. Voldemort is gathering his forces. Having someone powerful, uncategorized, and unexpected might prove advantageous." Then he was gone, and Wanda was left with the uncomfortable realization that she'd traded one set of manipulations for another. Dumbledore wanted to help her, yes, but he also wanted to use her. The question was whether she'd let him, and what price she'd demand in return. Madame Pomfrey bustled about, preparing a sleeping draught Wanda wouldn't take. Through the window, she could see lights in a distant tower, students awake despite the late hour, perhaps studying or simply unable to sleep. Somewhere in this castle was Harry Potter, the boy Dumbledore had mentioned briefly, another weapon in a war between light and dark, another child soldier bearing burdens too heavy. She felt a kinship with him already. This stranger she'd never met. The chaos magic hummed beneath her skin, still unstable, still fighting against this world's structured laws. But it was adapting, learning, growing stronger. Wanda Maximoff had survived Hydra, Ultron, and her own grief. She would survive this too. And, if anyone tried to cage her again, they'd learn why they called her the Scarlet Witch. The great hall buzzed with the usual breakfast chaos. Hundreds of students chattering over porridge and pumpkin juice, owls swooping through the enchanted ceiling to deliver Morning Post. Wanda stood at the entrance beside Professor McGonagall, her borrowed Hogwarts robes feeling stiff and foreign against her skin. She'd insisted on keeping her red jacket underneath. Some things weren't negotiable. "Remember," McGonagall murmured, "you're from Durmstrang. Keep your answers vague. And for Merlin's sake, don't demonstrate any wandless magic in front of the students. We're trying to avoid panic." Wanda nodded, though her fingers itched with suppressed energy. She could feel the ambient magic saturating the castle. It thrummed through the stone, pulsed in the floating candles, sang from the enchanted ceiling that mimicked a cloudy November sky. Her chaos magic responded to it like a tuning fork, resonating and interfering simultaneously. The sorting would come tonight. For now, she was simply the mysterious transfer student, object of intense curiosity. As they entered, conversation rippled into silence. Hundreds of eyes turned toward her. Wanda's jaw tightened. She'd walked into hostile rooms before, UN assemblies, government hearings, public spaces where people recognize her face from news footage of Sokovia. This felt different. These were children, mostly, staring with innocent curiosity rather than adult fear. At the high table, Dumbledore caught her eye and nodded. Beside him sat a toad-like woman in lurid pink robes, her bulging eyes fixed on Wanda with undisguised suspicion. Dolores Umbridge, Wanda presumed. The High Inquisitor radiated saccharine malice, the kind of person who tortured while smiling. Wanda had met her type before. She didn't look away. "That's her," a whispered voice carried from the Gryffindor table. "The girl who fell from the sky. My dad works in magical law enforcement. He said she blew up half the forest." "I heard she's Durmstrang's secret weapon," another student hissed. "Dark magic specialist." "Dark magic? Look at her, she's our age. How dangerous could she be?" Wanda kept her expression neutral as McGonagall led her to a temporary seat at the staff table. The separation from the students was deliberate, unsorted. She belonged nowhere yet. It gave her an excellent vantage point to observe. The Gryffindor table drew her attention first. A boy with messy black hair and round glasses sat hunched over his breakfast, looking like he'd slept poorly. Harry Potter. She recognized him from the brief description Dumbledore had provided. Beside him, a bushy-haired girl was whispering urgently, while a red-haired boy shoveled food into his mouth, only half listening. Harry glanced up and their eyes met. For a moment, something passed between them, a recognition of shared burdens, perhaps, or simply the acknowledgement of fellow outsiders. Then his scar-decorated forehead creased in confusion, and he looked away. Miss Maximoff, a cold voice interrupted her observations. Umbridge had materialized beside her, pink cardigan and pearl necklace, creating an image of bureaucratic cheerfulness that didn't reach her eyes. How delightful to have a transfer student. I'm sure Headmaster Dumbledore has explained that all educational decrees must be followed to the letter. I'll need to see your transfer documentation, of course. Of course, Wanda replied evenly, though Professor Dumbledore mentioned the paperwork was being handled through official channels. International transfers require ministry approval, don't they? Umbridge's smile tightened. Indeed. And I'm certain the ministry will want to thoroughly vet any student claiming to be from Durmstrang, especially one who arrives under such irregular circumstances. Dolores, Dumbledore's voice carried a warning. Miss Maximoff has been through quite enough without bureaucratic harassment. She'll be sorted tonight and begin classes tomorrow. I'm certain the ministry will complete their review in due time. The ministry, Umbridge said, her voice dripping honey over poison, has concerns about the security of our students. Given recent events, her gaze flicked toward Harry Potter. We cannot be too careful about who we allow into Hogwarts. Wanda felt her chaos magic stir, responding to her irritation. Red wisps began forming around her fingers beneath the table. She forced them down, but not before Umbridge's eyes widened fractionally. The woman had seen. I assure you, Wanda said carefully, I have no intention of harming anyone here. I just want to learn and find my way home. Home. Umbridge's tongue darted out, wetting her lips. Yes, about that. The ministry is very interested in how exactly you arrived. Unauthorized portkeys are illegal, you understand. And the magical signature detected last night was most unusual. Almost dark. The word hung in the air like an accusation. Around the Great Hall, students had stopped pretending not to listen. This was theater, Wanda realized. Umbridge was establishing dominance, marking her as suspicious in front of the entire school. My magic, Wanda said quietly, isn't dark or light. It just is. Where I come from, we don't categorize power that way. How progressive. Umbridge's smile was razor sharp. But here in Britain, we have laws, standards, ways of ensuring that dangerous magic is properly controlled. I do hope you'll be a model student, Miss Maximoff. Detentions at Hogwarts can be quite educational. The threat was clear. Wanda's hands curled into fists, chaos magic crackling just beneath her skin. She could feel the woman's malice, her desire to break anyone who didn't conform to her narrow worldview. It would be so easy to show her what real power looked like, to demonstrate why governments feared the Scarlet Witch. Professor Umbridge, a new voice interjected. Severus Snape had risen from his seat, his black robes billowing as he approached. The headmaster has requested I provide Miss Maximoff with a tour of the dungeons before classes begin. As she'll be attending potions, it seems prudent to familiarize her with the layout. It was obviously a rescue, though Snape's expression suggested he found the task distasteful. Umbridge's eyes narrowed, but she couldn't object without appearing petty. Of course, Severus. How thoughtful. She turned back to Wanda. We'll continue this conversation later, Miss Maximoff. I do so enjoy getting to know our students personally. As Snape led her from the Great Hall, Wanda exhaled slowly. Thank you. Don't thank me. Snape's voice was a bored drawl. The headmaster requested I prevent you from doing anything regrettable. Given the magical pressure building around your hands, I arrived just in time. Wanda glanced down. Faint red energy still flickered around her fingers. She concentrated, pulling it back. She's dangerous. That Umbridge woman. She's a bureaucratic sadist with delusions of power, Snape agreed, leading her down a staircase that definitely shouldn't have been there a moment ago. But she has the ministry behind her, which makes her untouchable through conventional means. Control your temper around her, or you'll find yourself in detention learning exactly how creative her punishments can be. They descended into the dungeons, the temperature dropping with each step. Green-tinted light filtered through windows that somehow showed the lake despite being underground. Wanda's breath misted in the cold air. You're wondering why Dumbledore asked me specifically to intervene, Snape said, not looking at her. The thought crossed my mind. Because I recognize what you are. He finally turned, and his black eyes were unsettlingly knowing. A weapon that others desperately want to control. Someone powerful enough to shift the balance of any conflict. Someone who's killed before and will kill again if necessary. Wanda stiffened. You don't know anything about me, don't I? A ghost of a smile touched his lips. I was once in your position, Miss Maximoff. Powerful, desperate, caught between factions that wanted to use me. I made my choice. You'll make yours. But understand this. In the war that's coming, neutrality isn't an option. Voldemort will see you as a tool or a threat. The Order of the Phoenix will see you as an asset. Umbridge will see you as a problem to eliminate. And what do you see? Snape studied her for a long moment. A variable. One that could save us all or damn us completely. Try not to destroy the castle while you figure out which. He swept away down the corridor, leaving Wanda alone in the cold dungeon hallway. Through a nearby door, she could hear students in a potions class, the bubbling of cauldrons and Snape's sharp criticisms. Normal student life, proceeding as if the world wasn't balanced on knife's edge. Her chaos magic pulsed, stronger now than it had been since she'd arrived. The castle's ambient magic was like radiation. Her powers were adapting to it, growing accustomed to the interference. Soon she'd be back to full strength. The question was what she'd do with that power. Footsteps echoed from the stairwell. Wanda turned to find 3 students approaching. Harry Potter, the bushy-haired girl, and the red-haired boy. They stopped a respectful distance away, and for a moment, nobody spoke. You're her, Harry finally said. The one who crashed in the forest. Wanda Maximoff. She didn't offer her hand. And you're Harry Potter. Dumbledore mentioned you. Did he? Harry's expression was guarded. What else did he mention? That you're fighting a war most people don't believe exists. That you've seen someone return from the dead. That you know what it's like to have power you didn't ask for. The bushy-haired girl, Hermione Granger, Wanda recalled, stepped forward. We saw what you did in the Great Hall. The red energy around your hands. That's not normal magic, is it? No. Wanda saw no point in lying to them. Where I come from, it's called chaos magic. It lets me manipulate reality, probability, energy. Here. She gestured vaguely. It's fighting against how your magic works. But it's adapting. Ron Weasley's eyes widened. Blimey. Can you do wandless magic then? I've never used a wand in my life. Never. Hermione looked scandalized and fascinated in equal measure. But how do you control it? Focus your intent? Wandless magic is supposed to be nearly impossible for humans. Only the most powerful wizards can manage basic spells without wands. I just do it. Wanda raised her hand, and scarlet energy coalesced in her palm, forming a perfect sphere that rotated slowly. The dungeon stones hummed in response, resonating with her power. It's as natural as breathing. Or it was, before I came here. Your world's magic is structured differently. Regulated. Mine is chaos. Harry stared at the sphere with an expression Wanda recognized. Hunger for power, tempered by fear of what that power might cost. She dismissed the energy with a thought. Why are you really here? Harry asked bluntly. Dumbledore doesn't just take in random transfer students, especially ones who arrive by tearing holes in reality. Smart kid. Wanda leaned against the stone wall. I didn't choose to come here. My magic malfunctioned, created a dimensional rift. I fell through, and now I'm stuck until I can figure out how to get back to my world. Your world. Ron's freckled face screwed up in confusion. You mean you're from the future or something? Different dimension. Parallel reality. Whatever you want to call it. Where I come from, there's no Hogwarts. No wands. No wizarding world hidden from regular people. Just different kinds of power. Hermione's mind was clearly racing. Fascinating. The Department of Mysteries has theorized about parallel dimensions, but there's never been any proof. You could revolutionize our understanding of magical theory. Hermione, Harry interrupted gently. I don't think she wants to be a research subject. Thank you. Wanda met his eyes again, and again felt that strange kinship. I've been experimented on enough for one lifetime. The words hung heavy in the cold air. Harry's expression shifted, understanding, sympathy, and something darker. Shared trauma recognized across dimensional boundaries. Umbridge is going to make your life hell, he said flatly. She's been doing it to me all year. If you give her any excuse, she'll. His hand moved unconsciously to his other hand, and Wanda's sharp eyes caught the faint scarring. Letters etched into skin. Her chaos magic flared instinctively, responding to her anger. She did that to you? Blood quill, Hermione said quietly. Forces you to write with your own blood. It's illegal, but she has ministry backing, so... Wanda's vision hazed red for a moment. She'd seen torture before, inflicted it herself when Hydra had seemed like the answer. Witnessed it in Sokovia's streets. But this was a child punished by an authority figure in an institution that was supposed to protect him. She's going to hurt someone badly, Wanda said. You know that, right? People like her always do. They can't help themselves. We know. Harry's voice was grim. But what can we do? The Ministry won't listen. Dumbledore's hands are tied. And if we fight back, we just prove we're dangerous and out of control. Sometimes, Wanda said slowly, thinking of Lagos, of Sokovia, of every time she'd been told to restrain herself while others suffered. Being dangerous is the only thing that works. Hermione looked alarmed. You can't seriously be suggesting. I'm not suggesting anything. Wanda pushed off from the wall. I'm just saying I understand what it's like to be told you're too powerful, too dangerous, too different to be trusted. And I'm done apologizing for existing. She walked past them toward the stairs, then paused. For what it's worth, Potter, Dumbledore might be using both of us. But at least he's fighting the right enemy. Figure out what you're willing to sacrifice, and how far you're willing to go. Because from what I've seen in just one morning, this school is a powder keg. And when it explodes, you'll need to know where you stand. Behind her, she heard Ron whisper, She's absolutely mental. No, Harry said thoughtfully. She's just seen what we're starting to see. That sometimes the rules don't matter when the game is rigged. Wanda climbed back toward the light, her chaos magic humming with renewed strength. Tonight, she'd be sorted. Tomorrow, she'd begin pretending to be a normal student. But normal had never been an option for the Scarlet Witch. And in a castle full of secrets, ancient magic, and brewing war, that might be exactly what was needed. The Sorting Hat sat on its stool in front of the entire school, looking significantly more worn than Wanda had expected for a legendary magical artifact. The Great Hall had fallen silent again, all eyes on her as she approached. The enchanted ceiling showed a clear night sky, stars twinkling overhead like distant witnesses. Unprecedented, McGonagall had muttered earlier. A fifth-year sorting. The hat won't like being pulled from retirement midterm. But Dumbledore had insisted, and now Wanda stood before the stool, acutely aware of hundreds of students analyzing her every move. At the Gryffindor table, Harry Potter watched with guarded curiosity. At Slytherin, a platinum blonde boy sneered with aristocratic disdain. The staff table radiated mixed emotions, Dumbledore's patient interest, Snape's calculating assessment, Umbridge's barely concealed hostility. Wanda sat. McGonagall placed the hat on her head. Immediately, a voice exploded in her mind, not cruel, but startled and overwhelmed. Asterisk Merlin's beard. What in the name of the founders are you? Asterisk. I'm Wanda Maximoff, she thought back, keeping her mental shields tight. Years of fighting telepaths had taught her to guard her thoughts. Asterisk, those shields won't help, girl. I was made by Godric Gryffindor himself. I've sorted 1,000 years of minds far more guarded than yours. Though I must say, your mental architecture is unusual, fragmented. You've been inside someone's head before. Many someones. Asterisk. I've done what I had to do. Asterisk. Yes, necessity. The excuse of every morally gray decision ever made. Asterisk, the hat's voice turned contemplative. Asterisk, let me see what we have here. Courage. Oh, plenty of that. You walked into an exploding city to save strangers. Faced down a murder machine of your own creation. Watched your brother die and didn't break. Gryffindor would claim you in a heartbeat. Asterisk. Wanda felt the hat rifling through her memories like files in a cabinet. Sokovia. Pietro's body. The Mind Stone's searing touch. Asterisk. But wait, there's cunning here too. You manipulated the Avengers before joining them. Yes? Played on their fears, showed them nightmares tailored to break them. You knew exactly which psychological buttons to push. Slytherin would value that resourcefulness. Asterisk. Asterisk, I was trying to destroy them. I thought they were the enemy. Asterisk. Asterisk. And when you realized they weren't, you switched sides. Pragmatic. Survival-oriented. Still very Slytherin. Asterisk, the hat paused. Asterisk, though there's also remarkable loyalty once you give it. You'd have died for Pietro. You'd die for those you consider yours. That's Hufflepuff territory. Asterisk. I don't want to die for anyone, Wanda thought sharply. Asterisk, I want to live. I want to go home. Asterisk. Asterisk. Ah, but you would, wouldn't you? If it came down to it. You're a protector at heart, even when you pretend not to care. Asterisk, the hat's voice softened. Asterisk. And then there's your mind, brilliant, creative, constantly analyzing probability and outcome. You see reality as a puzzle to be solved, reconfigured. You spent your childhood reading Muggle science fiction and philosophy, dreaming of rewriting the world. Ravenclaw would nurture that intellect. Asterisk. Wanda's patience frayed. Just pick one already. Asterisk, not so fast, girl. This decision matters more than you realize. The house I place you in will shape your alliances, your opportunities, your very survival in this school. You're not just a student, you're a catalyst. A wild card in a game of wizard's chess played by powers you don't yet comprehend. Asterisk. Then tell me which house helps me get home fastest. Asterisk, home. Asterisk, the hat's voice turned sad. Asterisk, I've seen your home, Wanda Maximoff. I've felt your grief for it, your longing. But I've also seen something you haven't admitted to yourself. You're not sure you deserve to go back. The people you hurt. The mistakes you made. Part of you thinks this exile is punishment you've earned. Asterisk. Wanda's mental shields slammed down harder. Stay out of that. Asterisk, can't, I'm afraid. Your guilt is wound through everything. It colors every decision, every relationship. You push people away before they can abandon you. You hold your power in check because you're terrified of what you'll do if you let go. And beneath it all, there's a hunger for belonging so intense it frightens you. Asterisk. Asterisk, I belong with the Avengers. With my team, asterisk. Asterisk, do you? Or were you just another weapon they pointed at problems? Be honest. Did they ever truly understand you? Accept the darkness in you alongside the light? Asterisk. The question struck deeper than Wanda wanted to admit. She thought of the team's wariness around her, the way they'd celebrated her heroism but flinched from her chaos magic. Even Vision, who claimed to understand, had wanted her to be less. I see the truth now, the hat murmured. Asterisk. You're searching for a place where you don't have to be less. Where power isn't something to apologize for. Where the darkness you carry isn't shameful, but simply part of who you are. Asterisk. Asterisk, you can't give me that. You're just an old hat. Asterisk. Asterisk, perhaps. But I can give you allies who might understand. The question is which ones? Asterisk, the hat's voice turned businesslike. Asterisk, Gryffindor would give you heroes, brave, reckless, ready to die for what's right. You'd find kinship with Potter and his lot. They're good people, Wanda. They'd try to save you from yourself. Asterisk. I don't need saving. Asterisk, Slytherin would give you power. Cunning minds who appreciate your ruthless side. They'd teach you to use this world's politics to your advantage. Some would try to corrupt you. Others would respect your strength. You'd thrive there, but at what cost? Asterisk. What about the other two? Asterisk, Ravenclaw would feed your mind. Surround you with intellectuals who could help you understand this world's magic. Maybe find your way home. But they'd also dissect you, study you, treat you as a fascinating problem rather than a person. Asterisk. And Hufflepuff? Asterisk, Hufflepuff would give you community. Loyal friends who'd stand by you regardless of your past. They'd ask nothing but that you be true to yourself. No judgment for your power or your darkness. Just acceptance. Asterisk. The word hung in Wanda's mind like a promise she didn't dare believe. But here's what I've learned in 1,000 years, the hack continued. Asterisk. The house doesn't make the witch. The witch makes the house. Gryffindor has produced heroes and tyrants. Slytherin has created both Dark Lords and devoted defenders. You could flourish or fail in any of them. The real question is, what do you need right now? Asterisk. Wanda considered. Power? She had that. Knowledge? She could acquire it anywhere. Heroes? She'd seen how heroes failed when it mattered most. What did she need? An anchor, the hat said gently, reading her realization. Asterisk. Something to keep you grounded while your power threatens to unmake you. Someone to remind you that you're still human beneath the chaos, magic, and trauma. That's what you're really searching for, isn't it? Not a way home, but a reason to want to go there. Asterisk. You're wrong, Wanda thought, but the denial felt hollow. Asterisk. Am I? Then why did you hesitate when Dumbledore asked if you wanted to leave immediately? Why did you accept enrollment rather than demanding he find a solution right away? You could have threatened him, forced his hand. Your power frightens even him. But instead, you chose to stay. Asterisk. Asterisk. Because I'm not stupid. I need to understand this world before I can navigate it. Asterisk. Or, the hat said knowingly, asterisk, because a small part of you wonders if this is an opportunity. A chance to be someone other than the Scarlet Witch, destroyer of Sokovia, avenger with blood on her hands. Here, you could be just Wanda. Student. Friend, maybe. Person first, weapon second. Asterisk. Wanda's throat tightened. She hadn't cried since Pietro died. She wouldn't start now, not in front of hundreds of strangers. Just choose already. Asterisk. Very well. Asterisk. The hat's voice turned formal. Asterisk. I place you where you'll find what you need most, though you may not recognize it at first. Where loyalty matters more than power, where your darkness won't define you, where you might finally learn that belonging isn't earned through sacrifice. It's given freely to those brave enough to accept it. Asterisk. The hat's voice rose to audible levels. Hufflepuff. The table in yellow and black erupted in cheers, though they sounded surprised. Wanda removed the hat, handed it to McGonagall, and walked toward the Hufflepuff table in a daze. She'd expected Slytherin, honestly. Maybe Gryffindor. But Hufflepuff? The house of loyalty, hard work, and kindness? A space opened for her beside a girl with dirty blonde hair and a dreamy expression. Luna Lovegood, Wanda would later learn, though she was technically a Ravenclaw who'd wandered over. Across from her, a boy with dark hair and a nervous smile extended his hand. Cedric Diggory, he said warmly. Well, Cedric's younger cousin, Evan. Welcome to Hufflepuff. We're thrilled to have you, even if you look absolutely terrified. I'm not terrified, Wanda said automatically. Of course not. A prefect with a purple badge smiled at her. But you do look like someone just told you you'd been sorted into the unexpected. Don't worry, we get that a lot. People think Hufflepuff is the leftover house, but they're idiots. We're the house that stays loyal when everyone else runs, another student added. The ones who do the right thing, even when it's not glamorous or heroic. The ones who accept people for who they are, an older girl interrupted gently. Power, past, problems and all. You'll fit in fine, Wanda Maximoff. We don't judge. Wanda looked around the table. Unlike Gryffindor's boisterous confidence or Slytherin's cool appraisal, the Hufflepuffs simply welcomed her. No interrogation, no suspicion, just genuine warmth. It felt wrong. She didn't deserve it. From the Gryffindor table, Harry Potter caught her eye and gave a small nod, acknowledgement, maybe respect. At Slytherin, the platinum blonde boy watched her with undisguised interest, whispering to his cronies. And at the staff table, Umbridge's expression had soured considerably. Dumbledore raised his goblet in a subtle toast toward Wanda. She didn't return it. First Hufflepuff transfer in 40 years, Evan was saying. You're going to cause quite a stir in the common room. Hope you like plants. Our dormitories are near the greenhouses, and some of the older students have interesting botanical collections. I like plants fine, Wanda said numbly. Excellent. And you'll need a buddy for classes tomorrow. I'm in 5th year too, potions, transfiguration, defense against the dark arts, though Umbridge is absolutely dreadful. I can show you around, introduce you to people. Thank you. Luna Lovegood leaned across the table, her protuberant eyes fixed on Wanda, with unsettling intensity. You have Raxperts in your aura. Very unusual ones. They're attracted to dimensional instability. What? She does that, Evan whispered. Just smile and nod. Luna's brilliant, but speaks in riddles half the time. They're not riddles, Luna said serenely. They're observations. Wanda understands, don't you? You see things others don't. Feel the magic differently. The normal rules don't apply to you. Wanda stared at the odd girl. How did you? I pay attention. Luna smiled. Most people don't. They're too busy being normal to notice the extraordinary. But you're not normal, and you never will be. That's not a bad thing. Before Wanda could respond, Dumbledore stood, and the hall quieted. Now that our newest student has been sorted, I have one announcement. As many of you know, educational standards are of paramount importance. Therefore, students interested in practical defensive magic are encouraged to pursue extracurricular study groups, within the bounds of school rules, naturally. His eyes twinkled with something that looked suspiciously like mischief. Across the hall, Harry Potter's expression shifted from confusion to understanding. Hermione was already scribbling notes. Umbridge's smile had turned venomous. That said, Dumbledore continued, I must remind all students that unauthorized organizations are strictly forbidden under Educational Decree No. 24. Please enjoy your meal. As food appeared on the tables and conversation resumed, Wanda sat in the noise and warmth of the Hufflepuff table, surrounded by people treating her like she belonged. The Sorting Hat's words echoed in her mind, where you might finally learn that belonging isn't earned through sacrifice. It's given freely to those brave enough to accept it. She wasn't brave enough. Not yet. But maybe, in a house that valued loyalty above all else, she could learn to be. The Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom was a monument to bureaucratic tedium. Every surface had been decorated with lace doilies and kitten plates that mewed plaintively. The walls bore pink-framed posters with slogans like knowledge is power and learning in a controlled environment. Even the air smelled wrong, too floral, like someone had tried to perfume overwrought. Dolores Umbridge sat behind her desk like a toad on a lily pad, her wide mouth curved in a smile that didn't reach her bulging eyes. The 5th-year students filed in, Hufflepuffs and Gryffindors together for this class, and Wanda felt the collective resignation settle over them like fog. Books out, quills ready, Umbridge said in her girlish, breathy voice. Today, we continue our study of approved defensive theory. Chapter 7, Restricted Spells and Why They're Dangerous. From the Gryffindor side, Hermione's hand shot up. Professor, we've been reading theory for months. When will we practice actual defensive magic? Umbridge's smile widened, showing too many teeth. Miss Granger, as I've explained repeatedly, you will learn defensive magic in a secure, risk-free environment. Practical spell work is dangerous without proper theoretical foundation. But 10 points from Gryffindor for interrupting. The smile never wavered. Now, as I was saying, oh my. Umbridge's eyes found Wanda, who'd taken a seat near the back, beside Evan. Miss Maximoff, our mysterious transfer student. How delightful to finally have you in class. The classroom went silent. Everyone turned to stare. I've been reviewing your paperwork, Umbridge continued, standing and moving toward Wanda with deliberate slowness. Or rather, I've been reviewing the lack thereof. Durmstrang has been most uncooperative in providing your academic records, almost as if they don't have any records of you at all. Wanda kept her expression neutral. International transfers take time. The headmaster mentioned. The headmaster mentions many things, Umbridge interrupted sweetly. But I am the High Inquisitor, and I have certain responsibilities regarding student safety. So tell me, Miss Maximoff, what exactly did you study at Durmstrang? It was a trap. Wanda knew nothing about Durmstrang's curriculum, its teaching methods, or its philosophy. One wrong answer, and Umbridge would pounce. Combat magic, Wanda said simply. Practical applications. They don't separate theory and practice the way you do here. Combat magic. Umbridge's tongue darted out, wetting her lips. How very dark. Durmstrang is known for its liberal attitude toward the dark arts, isn't it? Tell me, did they teach you any unforgivable curses? The room held its breath. Even Harry Potter, who'd been slouching in studied boredom, sat up straighter. No, Wanda lied smoothly. She'd used mind control, arguably worse than the Imperious Curse. But Umbridge didn't need to know that. Durmstrang emphasizes power and discipline, not illegal magic. Umbridge circled Wanda's desk like a predator. And yet you performed wandless magic in the Great Hall. Highly advanced wandless magic, according to witnesses. Magic that didn't follow any recognized spell structure. I learned young, Wanda said. Some people have natural aptitude. Natural aptitude. Umbridge's smile turned poisonous. Or perhaps uncontrolled power. Dangerous power. The kind that requires special monitoring. She returned to her desk, extracting a pink parchment from a drawer. I'm implementing a new policy for you, Miss Maximoff. Given your unusual magical signature and lack of proper documentation, you will demonstrate any spell you cast before performing it. No surprises. No unsanctioned magic. That's ridiculous, Evan protested. You can't. I can and I will, Umbridge snapped, her sweet voice developing an edge. Educational Decree 29 grants me authority to implement special protocols for students deemed potentially dangerous. Miss Maximoff's wandless magic and dimensional origin certainly qualify. Wanda's hands clenched beneath the desk. Red energy flickered around her fingers, responding to her anger. She forced it down, but not before Umbridge's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. In fact, Umbridge continued, why don't we have a demonstration right now? Show the class some of this wandless magic you're so proud of. Something simple. Levitate this teacup, perhaps. She conjured a delicate china teacup and placed it on Wanda's desk. The entire class watched, tension thick enough to taste. Harry's green eyes were calculating behind his glasses. Hermione looked worried. And Wanda knew exactly what Umbridge was doing. If Wanda demonstrated her power, she'd prove herself dangerous and give Umbridge justification for restrictions. If she refused, she'd appear weak and still face punishment for insubordination. Classic bureaucratic entrapment. Wanda had faced worse. She raised her hand, and crimson energy coalesced around her fingers, deliberate, controlled, visible. The teacup lifted smoothly into the air, rotating slowly. Nothing threatening. Nothing that couldn't be accomplished with a basic levitation charm. Adequate, Umbridge said, though her expression suggested disappointment. Now tell me, Miss Maximoff, could you use that power to harm someone? The question was designed to incriminate. Any answer would confirm danger. Could you harm someone with your wand? Wanda countered. I've seen what wizarding magic can do. Cutting curses, stunning spells, even killing curses. Any power can harm. It's about choice. Choice. Umbridge's smile returned. How philosophical. Unfortunately, the Ministry has learned that relying on individual choice is dangerous when dealing with powerful magic, which is why regulations exist, why training must be controlled, why we can't simply allow students to practice whatever magic strikes their fancy. She pulled out a different parchment, black ink on official Ministry letterhead. This is Educational Decree 30, passed this morning. It grants the High Inquisitor authority to suspend any student deemed a threat to school safety. Suspension can be indefinite, pending Ministry investigation. The threat was clear as crystal. Step out of line, and Umbridge would have her expelled and imprisoned. Wanda let the teacup settle gently back on the desk. Understood, Professor. Excellent. Umbridge's smile was triumphant. I'm so glad we could have this productive conversation. Now, class, books open to Chapter 7. Miss Maximoff, I expect a 12-inch essay on the dangers of unregulated magic by tomorrow morning. Single-spaced. As Umbridge returned to her desk, Harry Potter caught Wanda's eye and mouthed 2 words. Room of requirement. The rest of the class passed in agonizing slowness. Umbridge lectured in her saccharine voice about theoretical defensive postures and approved ministry protocols. Nothing practical. Nothing useful. Just bureaucratic drivel designed to keep students helpless. When the bell finally rang, Wanda gathered her things and headed for the door. Umbridge's voice stopped her. One moment, Miss Maximoff. Wanda turned. The classroom had emptied except for them. Umbridge stood, moving to close the door with a casual flick of her wand. Privacy charms activated. Wanda felt them settle like a cage. I wanted to speak with you privately, Umbridge said, dropping the girlish act. Her voice turned cold and calculating. Student to student, as it were. Or rather, woman to woman. I'm not interested in games. No games. Just honesty. Umbridge leaned against her desk. You're powerful. Exceptionally so. And you're wasted here, pretending to be a student, learning magic you don't need. Dumbledore is using you. Surely you see that. Wanda's expression didn't change, but her mind raced. Where was this going? The ministry could offer you something better, Umbridge continued. Recognition. Resources. A position in the Department of Mysteries, perhaps studying your unique abilities. You could work with the finest magical minds in Britain, possibly find your way home, and in exchange, I'd spy on Dumbledore for you. Such an ugly word, spy. Umbridge's smile returned. Think of it as cooperation. Insurance. The headmaster is planning something, building his little army, recruiting students to his cause. We simply need to know what he's planning before he destabilizes the ministry entirely. It was almost funny. In her world, governments had made similar offers. Work for us. Help us control enhanced individuals. Ensure stability. She'd refuse then. She'd refuse now. No, Wanda said flatly. Umbridge's expression hardened. You should reconsider. The ministry has ways of making life difficult for uncooperative individuals, especially ones whose documentation is questionable and whose presence is already controversial. Is that a threat? It's reality. Umbridge moved closer, her perfume cloying. You're in a world you don't understand, girl. You need allies. The ministry can be a powerful ally or a devastating enemy. Choose wisely. Wanda let a hint of red energy flicker around her hand, just enough to make her point. I've faced enemies before, Professor. Governments, organizations, beings with power you can't imagine. I'm still here. They're not. For the first time, genuine fear flickered in Umbridge's eyes. She stepped back, hand moving toward her wand. That, she said shakily, was a threat against a ministry official. I could have you expelled, arrested. You could try. Wanda's voice was soft, dangerous. But here's what would happen. You'd attempt to use force. I'd defend myself. And when the dust settled, your kitten plates would be rubble, and you'd be explaining to the minister how you provoked a student into a confrontation you couldn't win. She moved toward the door, then paused. I'm not interested in your games, Professor Umbridge. I'm not interested in the ministry's politics or Dumbledore's plans. I just want to go home. Stay out of my way, and I'll stay out of yours. Wanda left before Umbridge could respond, her heart pounding. That had been reckless, threatening a government official, revealing too much of her power. But she was done being backed into corners, done letting petty tyrants think fear would control her. In the corridor, Harry Potter waited, leaning against the wall with forced casualness. Hermione and Ron flanked him, clearly standing guard. That was either brilliant or suicidal, Harry said, without preamble. Possibly both. She tried to recruit me, threatened me when I refused. Sounds about right. Harry's jaw tightened. She's done the same to me all year. Detention with a blood quill, psychological torture disguised as discipline. The ministry's terrified of Dumbledore building power, so they sent her to break anyone who might support him. Are you, Wanda asked, supporting Dumbledore? I'm supporting survival." Harry started walking, and they fell into step beside him. Voldemort's back. The Ministry denies it. Dumbledore's the only one taking the threat seriously. So yeah, I'm on his side, not because I trust him completely, but because the alternative is dying unprepared when Death Eaters attack. They walked in silence for a moment, navigating the shifting staircases. Ron kept glancing at Wanda like she might explode. Hermione looked thoughtful. "The Hufflepuffs talked to you," Hermione said finally. "About the day. They mentioned it." And Harry stopped, turning to face her. "Are you coming? Tomorrow night, 8th floor, tapestry of Barnabas the Barmy. The room will appear if you need it." Wanda studied him, this skinny 15-year-old carrying a destiny he didn't choose, fighting a war most people refused to acknowledge, trying to prepare his classmates for violence he'd already experienced. She saw herself in him, the isolation, the burden, the desperate need to protect people who might not survive what was coming. "I'll come," she said, "but I'm not promising to join. I need to see what you're doing first." "Fair enough." Harry's smile was brief but genuine. "Just watch yourself around Umbridge. She's got the Ministry behind her, and she's looking for any excuse to hurt people, especially people Dumbledore seems to favor. I can handle her." That's what Cedric Diggory thought. Harry's expression darkened. He was a Hufflepuff too. Good guy, powerful wizard, tried to do the right thing. Voldemort killed him just to prove a point. Being powerful doesn't make you safe. Sometimes it makes you a target. The warning hung heavy. Wanda thought of Pietro, who'd been fast enough to dodge bullets, but not fast enough when it mattered most. "I know," she said quietly. "Trust me, I know." Later, in the Hufflepuff common room, Wanda sat by the fire working on Umbridge's essay. The assignment was designed to be demeaning. Write about why her own power was dangerous. Incriminate herself on parchment. She wrote carefully, giving just enough to satisfy the requirement without admitting anything actionable. Evan dropped into the chair beside her, his own homework scattered across his lap. "Heard you had words with Umbridge after class. News travels fast. Hogwarts is a small castle, and you're interesting." He grinned. "What did she want? To recruit me? Or intimidate me? Maybe both." "She's terrified of you," Evan said matter-of-factly. "Everyone can see it. You're powerful in ways she can't categorize or control. That makes you dangerous to her worldview." "I'm dangerous, period," Wanda said. "She's not wrong about that." "Maybe." Evan set his quill down. "But there's dangerous like a runaway curse, and dangerous like a controlled fire. One destroys everything. The other keeps you warm and cooks your food. You get to choose which one you are." Wanda looked at this earnest Hufflepuff boy who talked about choice like it was simple. "What if I already destroyed everything once?" she asked. "What if the dangerous fire already burned down a city?" "Then you rebuild," Evan said simply. "You learn from it. You make sure it doesn't happen again. That's what being human means, screwing up, surviving, and trying to do better next time." The venomous tentacula on her nightstand waved a tendril. In the corner, older students practiced nonverbal spells. Outside the round windows, dusk settled over the grounds. Tomorrow she'd attend the DA meeting, see what Harry Potter was building, decide if a war in another dimension was worth fighting. But tonight, surrounded by plants and firelight and people who'd accepted her without demanding perfection, Wanda felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. The room of requirement materialized exactly as Harry had described. A vast, high-ceilinged space filled with practice dummies, bookshelves crammed with defensive texts, and cushions scattered across the floor for those who needed to rest between drills. Wanda counted 23 students from various houses, all looking nervous and determined in equal measure. Harry stood at the front, flanked by Hermione and Ron. When Wanda entered, conversations faltered. Eyes tracked her movement as she found a spot near the back, deliberately casual. Luna waved from where she sat cross-legged on a cushion, her wand tucked behind her ear like a pencil. "Right," Harry said, calling the meeting to order. "Before we start, we have a new member. Wanda Maximoff, Hufflepuff 5th year. She's got a unique background in defensive magic." Unique is one word for it, a Ravenclaw boy muttered. I heard she made Umbridge's teacup explode just by looking at it. I didn't explode anything, Wanda corrected. I levitated it. Umbridge did the rest herself by being paranoid. Nervous laughter rippled through the room. Harry's lips twitched in an almost smile. Wanda's demonstrated wandless magic, Hermione added, clearly trying to establish credentials, which could be incredibly valuable for situations where we're disarmed or our wands are broken. Can you teach us that? A Gryffindor girl asked eagerly. Wandless magic would be brilliant. I don't know, Wanda said honestly. My magic works differently than yours. I manipulate energy directly. You channel magic through wands using structure spells. I'm not sure the principles translate. But you could try, Harry said. It wasn't a question. Even if we can't replicate wandless casting, understanding how you approach magic might give us new perspectives. Wanda studied the expectant faces. These were children, most younger than her, some barely teenagers, preparing to fight Death Eaters with decades of experience and no moral constraints. It was insane. Noble and brave, but insane. And looking at Harry Potter, she understood why they followed him. He'd faced Voldemort and survived multiple times, according to whispered stories. He'd seen friends die. He knew exactly what they were preparing for. And he was still here, still teaching, still trying to save people. I'll try, she said. But no promises. And we start small. I'm not teaching reality manipulation to people who might accidentally erase themselves from existence. Fair enough. Harry's expression turned serious. All right, everyone. Today we're working on shield charms and stunning spells in combination. The goal is to defend and counterattack in one fluid motion. Pair up experienced members with newer ones. The room erupted into motion. Students partnered off, wands at the ready. Wanda found herself approached by Neville Longbottom, a round-faced Gryffindor who looked perpetually anxious. If you don't mind, could we practice together, he stammered. I'm not very good at this, but I'm trying to improve. There was something endearing about his honesty. Sure. Show me what you've learned. Neville demonstrated his shield charm, a shimmering barrier that appeared but wavered like heat haze. His stunning spell was better, the red light flying straight and true, but his stance was all wrong. He left himself open after casting. You're too stiff, Wanda observed. You're thinking about the spell instead of the result. What are you trying to do? Cast a proper shield charm? No. You're trying to not get hit. There's a difference. Wanda moved into a fighting stance, muscle memory from training with the Avengers. When I defend myself, I'm not thinking about the specific energy configuration. I'm thinking, nothing touches me. The magic follows the intent. But that's wandless magic, Neville protested. I can't just. Try anyway. Don't focus on the spell. Focus on the result. You will not be hit. Believe it completely. Neville's brow furrowed in concentration. He raised his wand again, and this time when he cast *Protego, the shield blazed brighter, more solid. Not perfect, but noticeably improved. That's brilliant. Hermione called from across the room, where she'd been monitoring everyone's progress. What did you do differently? I just believed it would work, Neville said, sounding surprised. Intent matters, Wanda explained, raising her voice so others could hear. In my world, powers don't work if you second-guess yourself. Doubt creates failure. The same might be true here. If you cast a spell expecting it to fail, it probably will. Harry had stopped his own practice to listen. That's what Dumbledore said once. Magic responds to emotion and conviction, not just proper wand movement. We've been so focused on technique that we forgot about belief. Technique still matters, Wanda cautioned. I'm just saying it's not everything. Power requires confidence. For the next hour, she circulated through the room, observing and offering insights that had nothing to do with traditional wizarding instruction. She taught them about reading opponents' body language, about moving targets being harder to hit, about creating psychological pressure through unpredictability. When a Ravenclaw named Terry Boot complained that his disarming charm kept missing, Wanda demonstrated feints and misdirection, making your opponent expect one thing while doing another. When Hannah Abbott struggled with maintaining her shield under pressure, Wanda talked about fear management and controlled breathing. "You're good at this," Luna observed during a water break. "Teaching, I mean. You see what people need instead of just telling them what to do." "I've had a lot of bad teachers," Wanda said. "Learned what not to do." "Hydra," Luna said calmly, and Wanda nearly dropped her water. "How do you? You mentioned them once in the hospital wing. And you have the look of someone who's been experimented on." "I recognize it. There was a wizard in my village who'd been subjected to illegal modification charms." Same haunted expression around the eyes. Wanda stared at this strange, perceptive girl. "You're too observant for your own good." "Probably. But it means I notice things others miss. Like how you're more comfortable teaching defense than learning wizarding magic. Because defense is about survival, and survival you understand." Before Wanda could respond, a commotion erupted across the room. Two students, a Slytherin and a Gryffindor, had escalated from practice dueling to actual fighting, spells flying with real intent to harm. "Asterisk enough," asterisk, Harry shouted, but they ignored him. Wanda moved on instinct. Red energy exploded from her hands, forming barriers between the combatants and absorbing their spells harmlessly. Both students stumbled backward, shocked into silence. "What are you doing?" Wanda's voice cut through the sudden quiet like a blade. "This is practice, not execution. You want to hurt each other for real, take it outside. Don't waste everyone's time with your ego bullshit." The Slytherin, a fifth year named Theodore Knott, flushed. "He called me a Death Eater sympathizer. And you proved him wrong by trying to curse him?" Wanda's chaos magic still flickered around her hands, making her point. "Where I come from, we had a word for people who hurt others just to prove they're not bad people. Hypocrites." Theodore's jaw clenched, but he lowered his wand. The Gryffindor, Dean Thomas, did the same, looking ashamed. "Everyone take 5, Harry said quietly. He approached Wanda as the students dispersed to opposite corners. "Thanks for that. It was getting out of hand." "Why is there a Slytherin here?" Wanda asked. "I thought they all supported Voldemort." "Theodore's different. His father's a Death Eater. But Theo..." Harry shrugged. "He wants out. Wants to be better than his family. I believe him, but not everyone does. The house divisions make everything more complicated. Tribalism usually does." Wanda watched Theodore standing alone, isolated from both his house and the group he was trying to join. Another outsider. Another person trying to escape their bloodline sins. She walked over to him. Theodore stiffened, defensive. "I didn't mean to lose control," he said before she could speak. I know," Wanda interrupted. "People judge you for things you didn't do. Things your family did, choices you never made. They look at you and see the worst possibilities instead of who you actually are." Theodore's eyes widened fractionally. "Yes, exactly. I get it. My parents were killed by a weapon made by a man I later called a teammate. For years, I blamed him, hated him, tried to destroy him. Turned out he wasn't the villain. The people using his weapons were. But everyone had already decided he was guilty. What changed your mind? I saw him risk everything to save people who hated him. Saw him take responsibility for things that weren't entirely his fault. Realized that judging people by their worst associations instead of their actual choices makes everyone a villain eventually." Theodore absorbed this, his expression complicated. "The DA doesn't trust me. Even Harry, he lets me attend, but he watches me like I might betray them any second. So prove him wrong. Not with words, with action. When it matters, when things get bad, show them who you really are. And if I fail, if I make the wrong choice when it counts." Wanda met his gaze steadily. "Then you'll have failed making your own choice instead of succeeding at someone else's. That matters more than you think." Harry called them back for the final exercise, paired dueling with rotating partners. Wanda found herself facing Ron Weasley, who looked equal parts terrified and excited. "Go easy on me?" he asked hopefully. "Where's the learning in that?" Ron's stunning spell came fast. He was better than he pretended. Wanda deflected it with a wave of chaos magic, the spell dissolving against her barrier. She countered with a carefully controlled bolt of energy that forced Ron to dodge rather than shield. "You're relying too much on offense," she observed. "What happens when you face someone faster? I get stunned?" "Exactly. Try again. This time, think defense first." They went 3 more rounds, Ron gradually improving his defensive instincts. Other pairs cycled through. Wanda faced Hermione, brilliant technique but predictable patterns. Hannah, solid fundamentals but hesitant to commit. And finally Harry himself. Harry's style was aggressive, practical, honed by actual life-or-death combat. His spells came in combinations, each one setting up the next. He pressed forward, not giving her space to breathe. Wanda grinned. Finally, a real challenge. She let her chaos magic flow more freely, not enough to overpower him, but enough to make him work. His shield charm met her energy blasts, holding strong. His disarming charm nearly caught her off guard. She had to twist reality slightly, making the spell veer off course. "You're holding back," Harry accused, breathing hard. "So are you." They circled each other, and Wanda felt the room watching. This wasn't just practice, it was evaluation. The DA wanted to know if she was as powerful as rumors suggested, if she could actually help them. Harry feinted left, cast right. Wanda read the tell and countered, her chaos magic forming a whip that disarmed him without touching him. His wand flew across the room, but Harry was already moving, diving for a practice wand from the nearby rack, rolling, coming up ready. The recovery was instinctive, born from experience, fighting without advantages. "Good," Wanda said, genuinely impressed. "You've lost your wand in real fights before." "More than once." Harry's grin was fierce. "Against Voldemort, you can't count on keeping anything." The name made several students flinch. But Harry said it casually, robbing it of power. Wanda understood the tactic. She'd done the same with her own demons. "All right," Harry called out, breaking their duel. "That's enough for tonight. Same time next week, and everyone practice intent focus." Wanda's right about belief mattering. If you cast spells expecting to fail, you probably will. As students filed out in small groups, carefully separated to avoid suspicion, Hermione approached Wanda with several other members, Dean Thomas, Parvati, Patil, and the twins Fred and George Weasley. "That was incredible," Hermione said. "The way you manipulated Harry's spell trajectory. Was that reality warping?" "Small scale. I just convinced the universe the spell wanted to go somewhere else." "Convinced the universe," Fred repeated. "Right. Perfectly normal. Could you teach us that?" George asked. "Even partially?" "I don't think so," Wanda admitted. "My magic is innate. I was born with the potential, and it was activated by exposure to an infinity stone, an object of cosmic power. You'd need similar inherent abilities. But the intent focusing works for regular spells," Parvati said. "That's already valuable. Half our problem is psychological. We're so worried about getting spells right that we sabotage ourselves." Hermione was scribbling furiously in a notebook. "If we could quantify the relationship between emotional state and spell efficacy, we might develop training methods that improve casting success rates by—" "Hermione," Dean interrupted gently. "Not everyone wants to turn this into a research project. But it is research. Wanda's shown us a completely different magical framework. Understanding the principles could revolutionize how we approach. How about we just focus on not dying when Death Eaters attack?" Fred suggested. "Revolutionary research can come after we've survived our OWLS." As they debated, Wanda noticed Harry standing alone by the window, staring out at the darkened grounds. She crossed to him. "You okay?" "I'm thinking about what you said," Harry replied without looking at her. "About being dangerous. About choosing what kind of dangerous you are. And I've killed someone. Last year. Voldemort possessed me, forced me to watch while he murdered Cedric Diggory. I couldn't stop it. Couldn't save him." His jaw clenched. "I'm teaching these people to fight because I don't want to watch anyone else die. But what if teaching them just makes them targets? What if I'm making them dangerous in the wrong way?" Wanda stood beside him, both of them reflected in the dark glass. "I can't answer that," she said honestly. "I've asked myself the same question. every person I've trained, every ally I've empowered. I wonder if I've doomed them. But here's what I know. People will fight regardless. The question is whether they fight prepared or unprepared, informed or ignorant, with someone who understands the cost or alone. That doesn't make the responsibility easier. No, it doesn't. Wanda's reflection showed the weight she carried. Sokovia's dead, Pietro's sacrifice, every mistake that haunted her. But you're doing it anyway. That's what makes you different from the people who use others as weapons. You're carrying the weight instead of hiding from it. Harry finally looked at her. You're going to help us, aren't you? Really help, not just observe. I don't know yet, Wanda said. But it was a lie, and they both knew it. She'd already decided. The week following the ministry confrontation, Hogwarts felt different. Word had spread, whispered in corridors, scribbled in past notes, debated in common rooms. Wanda Maximoff had faced Bellatrix Lestrange and walked away unscathed. The Scarlet, which had rejected both ministry control and Voldemort's recruitment. Students no longer just stared. They watched, calculating what her presence meant for their survival. Wanda sat in the library's restricted section, surrounded by books Dumbledore had granted her special access to. Dimensional theory and magical displacement, the nature of chaos in structured magic, historical accounts of reality manipulation. None of them helped. Wizarding magic operated on principles fundamentally incompatible with her chaos magic. Their universe had rules, structures, limitations that her power inherently violated. You're doing it again. Hermione's voice interrupted her thoughts. The girl slid into the opposite chair, her own stack of books towering precariously. That thing where you stare at the same page for 20 minutes without actually reading. I'm thinking. You're brooding. There's a difference. Hermione pulled out parchment and a self-inking quill. Harry sent me to check on you. You've been avoiding the DA meetings. I attended last week. Once. Then vanished. Hermione's sharp eyes studied her. The students are asking questions, wondering if you're actually committed or just observing before deciding which side to join. Wanda's jaw tightened. I'm not joining Voldemort. I know that. You know that. But perception matters, Wanda. Neutrality reads as cowardice or calculation. Neither inspires confidence. I don't care about inspiring confidence. Then what do you care about? Hermione leaned forward, her intensity palpable. Because from where I'm sitting, you're powerful enough to change the outcome of this war. You could save lives. But instead you're hiding in the library, researching ways to abandon us. The accusation stung because it was partially true. Wanda had been focused entirely on finding a way home, treating this dimension as a temporary inconvenience rather than a reality with stakes and consequences. This isn't my fight, Wanda said quietly. Isn't it? You're here. You're living in this world, eating our food, sleeping in our dormitories, benefiting from Dumbledore's protection. At what point does proximity become responsibility? I didn't choose to be here. Neither did Harry choose to be the boy who lived. Neither did Neville choose to have Death Eaters torture his parents into insanity. Neither did any of us choose this war. But we're fighting it anyway, because the alternative is letting evil win by default. Wanda stood abruptly, chaos magic crackling around her fingers in response to her agitation. Several nearby, students startled and moved away. You don't understand, Wanda said, her voice low and strained. Every time I commit to something, people die. I joined Hydra, Pietro, and I nearly helped destroy the world. I helped create Ultron, an entire city died. I joined the Avengers, we tore ourselves apart fighting each other. Everything I touch turns to ash, Hermione. So forgive me for being cautious about whose war I join. Hermione stood too, unfazed by the display of power. Then maybe the question isn't whose war you join, but what you're willing to stand for when it matters. You don't have to commit to Dumbledore or the Order. You don't have to become a soldier in someone else's army. But you can decide that torturing children with blood quills is wrong. That hunting students for their bloodline is wrong. That standing by while a genocidal dark wizard gains power is wrong. And if I make things worse, Then you'll have tried. Hermione's expression softened slightly. Look, I understand fear of your own power. I've seen what happens when magic goes wrong. But hiding from your abilities doesn't make you less dangerous. It just makes you unprepared when the danger finds you anyway. Before Wanda could respond, an alarm bell rang throughout the castle. Not the usual class chain chime, but a deep, resonant gong that made the stones themselves vibrate. Students looked up in confusion. Madame Pants, the librarian, went pale. That's the breach alarm, she whispered. The wards have been compromised. Chaos erupted. Students scrambled for the exits. Prefects shouted for order. And through the library windows, Wanda saw dark shapes descending from the sky, dozens of them, flying without brooms, cloaked in tattered black robes. Dementors, Hermione breathed in horror. But they're supposed to be guarding Azkaban. Not anymore. Wanda moved to the window, watching the soul-sucking creatures glide toward the castle. Behind them came figures on brooms, Death Eaters, their masks gleaming in the afternoon light. This is an attack. A real one. The library doors burst open. Professor McGonagall stood there, her wand out and her expression grim. All students to your common rooms immediately. Prefects organized defensive positions. Miss Granger, Fine Potter, we need the DA mobilized. Professor, Hermione started. Now, Miss Granger. McGonagall's voice cracked like a whip. Her eyes found Wanda. Miss Maximoff, the headmaster requests your presence in the Great Hall. We may need your particular skills. Wanda didn't hesitate. She ran, Hermione beside her, through corridors where students streamed in terrified confusion. Behind them, windows shattered as Dementors breached the castle's outer defenses. The temperature plummeted. Frost crept across stone walls. And everywhere, students began screaming as the Dementors' presence dredged up their worst memories. Wanda felt it too, the creeping cold, the whisper of despair. Memories she'd buried clawed at the surface. Pietro's body, Sokovia falling, the faces of people she couldn't save. But her chaos magic flared in response, burning red against the invasive darkness, forming a barrier between her mind and the Dementors' influence. They reached the Great Hall to find it transformed into a war room. Dumbledore stood at the center, coordinating with professors. Snape was already gone, departed to gather intelligence, Wanda guessed. McGonagall transfigured tables into barriers. Flitwick enchanted the suits of armor to defend the younger students. Wanda. Dumbledore's voice cut through the chaos. The Dementors are being controlled. Voldemort has somehow subverted the Ministry's authority over them. We need to drive them back before they breach the inner castle. Can your magic affect them? I don't know. I've never fought soul-eating demons before. Neither have most of us. Harry Potter emerged from a side door, the DA streaming in behind him. Students from every house, wands drawn, faces frightened but determined. But we're about to learn. Through the Great Hall's windows, Wanda saw the first wave of Dementors reaching the castle walls. Their presence was wrong on a fundamental level. They weren't just creatures, but absences, holes in reality where warmth and hope went to die. Her chaos magic recoiled instinctively. They're anti-existence, Wanda said, understanding crystallizing. They unmake joy, hope, life itself. They're the opposite of everything my magic represents. Can you fight them? Dumbledore asked urgently. I can try. Wanda moved to the window, raising her hands. Crimson energy gathered, brighter and more intense than usual. But I'll need help. Your Patronus charm, the one Harry taught, it creates positive energy, right? Life and hope manifested. Yes, Harry said, moving beside her. It's the only defense against Dementors. Then combine it with my chaos magic. I'll amplify your spells, give them more power. Wanda looked at the assembled DA members. Everyone who can cast a corporeal Patronus, form up. Everyone else, defensive positions. The Death Eaters will follow the Dementors in. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. Then Theodore Knott stepped forward, wand raised. My Patronus is weak, but I'll try. Hannah Abbott followed. Then Luna, Neville, Hermione, Ron. One by one, the DA members positioned themselves at the windows, wands ready. Harry stood at the center, his expression determined. On my mark, Harry called. Asterisk expecto patronum, asterisk. Silver light erupted from dozens of wands simultaneously. Stags, otters, rabbits, terriers, all manner of animals formed from pure positive energy. They burst through the windows toward the approaching Dementors. And Wanda released her chaos magic. Red energy wove through the silver patronuses, amplifying them, giving them substance and power beyond what normal spellwork could achieve. The combined magic struck the Dementor vanguard like a tidal wave of light and life, driving them back, burning away their darkness. Dementors shrieked, a sound like reality tearing, and retreated. But more came, an endless swarm, and behind them the Death Eaters began casting. Shield. McGonagall shouted. Protective barriers sprang up around the students. But the Death Eaters' curses were powerful, sustained, and creative. They targeted the castle's structure itself, blasting holes in walls, collapsing corridors. This wasn't a raid, it was an invasion. They're trying to reach something, Dumbledore said, his eyes narrowing. This isn't random violence. Voldemort wants something in the castle. The prophecy, Harry said suddenly. From the Department of Mysteries. There was another one, wasn't there? One that mentioned a witch from beyond the stars who would either save or doom the wizarding world. Everyone turned to look at Wanda. You think this is about me? Wanda asked. Voldemort wants you, Dumbledore said grimly. Either as an ally or eliminated as a threat. Bellatrix's recruitment attempt was genuine. He sees your potential. And if he can't have you, he'll kill me to prevent anyone else from having me. Wanda had heard this logic before. Governments operated the same way. Recruit enhanced individuals or neutralize them. So what's the plan? We evacuate the students through the flu network and emergency port keys, McGonagall said. Fight a defensive retreat until... No. Wanda's voice cut through. If they're here for me, then I end this. I go out there and face them. That's suicide, Hermione protested. There are dozens of Death Eaters and hundreds of Dementors. And I'm the Scarlet Witch. Wanda let her chaos magic flare, filling the great hall with crimson light that pushed back the creeping cold. I've faced worse odds. In Sokovia, I held off an army of killer robots while a city fell from the sky. This is just another battlefield. You'll die, Harry said flatly. They'll overwhelm you. Maybe. But I'll take enough of them down that the rest will run. Wanda met Dumbledore's eyes. You wanted to know whose side I'm on? I'm on the side that protects children. Those Death Eaters want to get to the students? They go through me first. Dumbledore studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Very well. But you won't go alone. Harry, take the DA and provide support. Professor McGonagall, coordinate the evacuation. I'll confront the Death Eaters' leadership. Albus, you can't. I must. Dumbledore's expression was resolved. Voldemort isn't here personally. He's too cautious for that. But his lieutenants are, and they need to see that Hogwarts will not fall easily. Plans solidified quickly. The younger students would evacuate first, escorted by Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw prefects. The DA would provide covering fire, while Wanda confronted the main Dementor swarm. Dumbledore and the professors would engage the Death Eaters directly. It was a desperate plan, born from necessity rather than strategy. But it was a plan. Wanda stood at the castle's main entrance, the massive oak doors thrown open before her. Beyond lay the grounds, normally peaceful, now swarming with Dementors that blotted out the afternoon sun. Frost covered everything. The lake had begun to freeze. Ready? Harry asked beside her, his wand glowing with barely contained Patronus energy. No, Wanda admitted, but that's never stopped me before. She stepped out into the cold, and the Dementors turned toward her as one, 100 eyeless faces tracking the bright, chaotic energy that sang from her very existence. They sensed what she was, pure life, pure potential, everything they existed to destroy. They descended like a plague. Wanda raised both hands, and chaos magic exploded outward in a hemisphere of crimson light that pushed the darkness back. Her power didn't just defend. It rewrote reality in a localized field, creating space where Dementor's anti-existence couldn't penetrate. Asterisk expecto patronum. Asterisk Harry Stagg erupted beside her, charging into the Dementor ranks. The DA followed, silver animals of every kind, a menagerie of hope and defiance. Combined with Wanda's chaos magic, they carved a path through the Dementor swarm. But there were so many. For every Dementor driven back, 2 more appeared. And Wanda could feel the strain, maintaining her reality-warping field while the Dementor's presence tried to unmake it. It was like holding back an ocean with her bare hands. A Death Eater curse slipped through, striking Wanda's shoulder. Pain lanced through her, but she converted it into fuel, feeding it into her chaos magic. The field expanded, burning brighter. "She's glowing," Ron shouted somewhere behind her. Merlin's beard, "She's actually glowing." Wanda was. Her chaos magic had suffused her entire body, making her a living beacon against the Dementor's darkness. She advanced into the swarm, and they fled before her, unable to withstand the concentrated life energy she represented. But the Death Eaters had adapted. They began targeting the students, forcing Wanda to divide her attention. A cutting curse nearly decapitated Neville. Wanda deflected it with a wave of chaos energy. An explosion spell threatened Hannah. Wanda absorbed it, the energy dissipating harmlessly against her shields. She was fighting on too many fronts, protecting too many people. Even her power had limits. Then Theodore Knott went down, struck by a curse Wanda couldn't see in time. He crumpled, blood pooling beneath him. No, Wanda's scream was primal. Her chaos magic detonated outward in a shockwave that obliterated every Dementor within 50 feet. The ground cratered beneath her. Windows shattered throughout the castle. When the dust cleared, she stood in a circle of scorched earth, breathing hard, chaos energy crackling around her like a living thing. The Dementors had retreated to a safe distance, and even the Death Eaters had paused, reassessing. They'd pushed her too far. And now they'd see what the Scarlet, which truly was when she stopped holding back. The air itself screamed as Wanda let her power fully manifest. Chaos magic didn't just emanate from her hands anymore. It poured from her eyes, her skin, every cell of her being saturated with crimson energy that warped reality in rippling waves. The ground beneath her feet cracked and reformed, stone becoming crystalline structures that had never existed in nature. The sky above twisted, colors bleeding into impossible spectrums. "Fall back," a Death Eater shouted, his voice cracking with panic. "Fall back, she's." Wanda gestured, and he simply stopped existing. Not killed, not destroyed, erased. The probability of his presence reduced to 0. One moment he was there, the next the universe had forgotten he'd ever been. The remaining Death Eaters scattered. Even their fanaticism couldn't withstand the primal terror of watching reality itself reject their companion. But the Dementors didn't flee. They couldn't. They were driven by something beyond fear, controlled by Voldemort's will. They surged forward again, an endless tide of despair. Wanda raised both hands and rewrote the fundamental rules governing their existence. In her original universe, she'd learned that her chaos magic could alter probability on quantum levels, changing the likelihood of outcomes, rewriting cause and effect. Here, in a dimension where magic already bent reality, her power had even fewer constraints. She didn't need to destroy the Dementors. She just needed to make their presence incompatible with this space. The air around Hogwarts began to glow, not with light, but with pure existence. Concentrated reality, so dense that the Dementors' anti-existence couldn't penetrate it. They slammed against the barrier like waves against a cliff, shrieking their alien screams, and dissolved. "Impossible," Hermione breathed from somewhere behind Wanda. "She's weaponizing existence itself." A massive explosion rocked the castle's north tower. Dumbledore's silhouette appeared against the flames, dueling 3 Death Eaters simultaneously. His spells were works of art, transfiguration, charms, and raw power woven together with centuries of mastery. But even Dumbledore was outnumbered. One Death Eater slipped past his defenses. Wand aimed at the students evacuating through a side entrance. Wanda's chaos magic intercepted the killing curse mid-flight, unmaking it before it could reach its target. She was defending the castle, the students, the very ground they stood on, all while maintaining the existence field that kept the Dementors at bay. It was too much, even for her. Blood began trickling from her nose. Her vision blurred. The chaos magic that usually flowed as naturally as breathing now felt like dragging boulders uphill. She was burning herself out, pushing past limits she'd never tested. Wanda. Harry's voice cut through the chaos. You have to stop, you're killing yourself. Not yet. Wanda gritted her teeth, feeding more power into her shields. Just a little longer. Just until the students were safe. Theodore not lay motionless 20 feet away, blood still pooling. Wanda couldn't tell if he was breathing. The sight fueled her rage, her determination. These Death Eaters had come to Hogwarts, a school, a place of children, and inflicted violence without hesitation or mercy. She would make them regret it. A Death Eater operat directly beside her, wand already moving in the killing curse's distinctive pattern. Wanda was too slow, too drained to react in time. Luna's Patronus, a graceful rabbit, slammed into the Death Eater's chest, disrupting his spell. The man stumbled backward, and Neville's stunning spell caught him squarely. We've got your back, Neville shouted, his usual nervousness replaced by fierce determination. Just hold the line. The DA had formed a defensive perimeter around Wanda, protecting her while she protected the castle. They weren't as powerful. Their magic wasn't as destructive, but they were brave and coordinated and utterly committed. Wanda felt something shift in her chest, not her power, but something deeper. These children were fighting for her, dying for her, trusting that her strength was worth their sacrifice. She couldn't let them down. Wanda dug deeper, past the pain and exhaustion, into reserves she didn't know she possessed. Her chaos magic responded, surging with renewed intensity. But this time it didn't just destroy or defend, it adapted. She'd been fighting like an avenger, like a weapon pointed at enemies. But this wasn't the Battle of New York or Sokovia. This was a school under siege, children fighting for survival. She needed to be more than a weapon. She needed to be a shield. Wanda changed tactics. Instead of projecting her power outward to attack, she wove it into the castle itself, reinforcing walls, sealing breaches, creating barriers that would hold even after she collapsed. Her chaos magic merged with Hogwarts' ancient wards, adding a layer of protection the castle had never known. The effect was immediate. Dementors that had been forcing their way through windows found themselves repelled by walls that now rejected their very nature. Death Eaters' curses fizzled against stones that probability itself refused to let be damaged. Dumbledore noticed the shift. His eyes found Wanda across the battlefield, and for a moment, understanding passed between them. He pressed his advantage, driving the Death Eaters back with renewed ferocity. She's integrating with the castle's defenses, a Death Eater screamed into what looked like a dark mark tattoo. We can't breach. The entire structure is fighting us. Then destroy the structure, came the reply. A cold, high voice that could only be Voldemort's, transmitted through dark magic. Bring it down around them. The Death Eaters switched strategies. They stopped targeting students and started targeting the castle's foundations, its load-bearing walls, its structural integrity. The message was clear. If they couldn't take Hogwarts, they'd bury everyone inside the rubble. Explosions rocked the castle. The West Wing began to collapse. Students screamed as floors gave way beneath them. And Wanda made a choice. She stopped defending herself entirely. Every ounce of her chaos magic flowed into the castle, holding it together through pure force of will. Stone that should have crumbled stayed solid. Towers that should have fallen remained standing. She became Hogwarts' keystone, the single point holding 1,000 years of architecture from complete collapse. But that left her vulnerable. A purple curse struck her back. Then another. Then a third. Wanda staggered but didn't fall, didn't stop channeling her power into the castle. The DA tried to shield her, but there were too many angles, too many attackers. Enough. Dumbledore's voice thundered across the battlefield, amplified by magic. His wand traced an intricate pattern, and golden fire erupted from its tip. Not normal flames, but Fox Phoenix fire, purifying and protective. It swept across the grounds, driving Death Eaters back, forcing them to apparate away or burn. The battle's tide turned, with Wanda protecting the castle and Dumbledore unleashing his full power. The Death Eaters found themselves outmatched. One by one, they retreated, disappearing with sharp cracks of apparition. The last Death Eater, a woman with wild gray hair, stood her ground long enough to scream, "This isn't over. The Dark Lord will have what he wants. The Scarlet Witch will bow or burn." Then she too vanished, and the battlefield fell silent except for groaning stone and crackling fires. Wanda released her hold on the castle and immediately collapsed. The world spun. Blood leaked from her ears, her nose, the corners of her eyes. She'd pushed too far, burned too bright. Her chaos magic had saved Hogwarts, but it had nearly killed her doing it. Hands caught her before she hit the ground. Harry's face swam into view, his expression terrified. "Stay with me," he was saying. "Don't you dare die. We need you." "Theodore," Wanda managed to whisper. "Is he alive?" "Barely. Madame Pomfrey has him." Harry's grip tightened on her shoulders. "You saved him. Saved all of us. That was the most incredible thing I've ever seen." "Stupid," Wanda corrected, tasting blood. "Should have paced myself. Should have." "You held an entire castle together while fighting off 100 Dementors and 24 Death Eaters," Hermione said, appearing beside Harry. Her eyes were wet. "You have nothing to apologize for." Dumbledore knelt beside her, his face grave. "Miss Maximoff, that was extraordinarily brave and extraordinarily reckless. You could have died. Nearly did, from the looks of it. But I didn't." Wanda forced herself to sit up despite the protests from everyone around her. "And neither did your students. That's what matters." "It matters," Dumbledore agreed quietly. "But so does your life. You are not expendable, Wanda. Your power doesn't make you any less valuable as a person." The word struck deeper than any curse. Wanda had spent so long being defined by her abilities, as a weapon, a threat, a tool, that she'd forgotten people might value her beyond what she could do. Around them, the grounds were devastated. Scorch marks, craters, sections of collapsed wall. But the castle stood. The students were safe. And as professors began organizing rescue and recovery efforts, Wanda saw something remarkable. The houses weren't separated anymore. Gryffindors helped Slytherins from rubble. Hufflepuffs shared healing drafts with Ravenclaws. The artificial divisions that usually defined Hogwarts had dissolved in the face of shared survival. And at the center of it all, Theodore Nott was being levitated to the hospital wing by a group that included Dean Thomas, the same boy he'd fought days earlier. Dean's face was set in determination, and when he caught Wanda's eye, he nodded once. Respect, maybe. Acknowledgement. "You changed something today," Luna said, appearing from nowhere with her usual uncanny timing. She handed Wanda a handkerchief for the blood still trickling from her nose. Not just the battle. Something deeper. People saw what choosing to protect others looks like, even when it costs everything. "I just did what needed doing." "Exactly." Luna smiled her dreamy smile. "That's what heroes do. Not because it's their responsibility or their destiny, but because someone has to, and they're there." Wanda wanted to argue that she wasn't a hero. Heroes didn't destroy cities or create genocidal AIs. But looking at the students who'd fought beside her, at Theodore not being carried to safety, at Hogwarts still standing against all odds, maybe heroism wasn't about being perfect. Maybe it was about choosing to show up anyway. "Miss Maximoff," McGonagall called, approaching with Madame Pomfrey. "Hospital wing. Now. You're bleeding from every orifice, and you can barely stand." "I can walk," Wanda protested, trying to stand and immediately proving herself wrong by stumbling. Harry and Ron caught her. "Hospital wing it is," Ron said cheerfully. "You know, for someone who claims not to care about our war, you just fought one hell of a battle." Wanda didn't have an answer for that. As they helped her toward the castle, stepping carefully over debris and around blast craters. She caught sight of Dumbledore speaking urgently with Snape. Their expressions were grim, and she caught fragments of their conversation, attacked specifically to test her capabilities. Voldemort now knows exactly how powerful she is. Target on her back larger than Potter's. Wanda's stomach tightened. She'd proven herself today, saved the school, protected the students. But in doing so, she'd also revealed exactly what she was capable of. Voldemort wouldn't ignore that. He'd either redouble his recruitment efforts or decide she was too dangerous to live. Either way, neutrality was no longer an option. The war had come to Hogwarts. And whether she liked it or not, Wanda Maximoff was now part of it. In the hospital wing, Madame Pomfrey fussed over her injuries while listing the damage in horrified tones. Magical exhaustion, internal bleeding, neural pathway damage from power overuse, reality corruption in your cellular structure. How are you even conscious? Practice, Wanda muttered, before the healing drafts pulled her under into dreamless sleep. Her last thought before darkness claimed her was of Pietro. He'd have been proud, she thought. Proud that she'd chosen to protect people instead of running. Proud that she'd found something worth fighting for, even in another dimension. She just hoped that choice didn't get everyone killed. Wanda woke to darkness and whispered voices. Her body felt like it had been through a meat grinder. Every muscle ached, her head pounded, and when she tried to move, pain lanced through her chest. The hospital wing's familiar antiseptic smell surrounded her, but something was different. Wrong. The voices continued, just beyond the curtain around her bed. Can't keep her here. It's too dangerous. That was Umbridge's simpering tone, but with an edge of genuine fear beneath the sweetness. She saved over 300 students' lives. McGonagall, sharp and defensive. Where exactly do you propose we send her? The Ministry has facilities. The Ministry wants to dissect her like a laboratory specimen. The answer is no, Dolores. The answer isn't yours to give, Minerva. A third voice, Cornelius Fudge himself. After today's attack, it's clear that Miss Maximoff's presence endangers every student in this castle. Voldemort targeted Hogwarts because of her. Voldemort targeted Hogwarts, Dumbledore's calm voice cut in. Because it represents everything he opposes, learning, unity, and hope. Miss Maximoff was simply a convenient excuse. Had she not been here, he'd have found another reason. Wanda stayed, perfectly still, listening. Her chaos magic hummed beneath her skin, recovering slowly but steadily. The reality corruption Madame Pomfrey had mentioned. She could feel it, a kind of feedback loop where her power was adapting to this dimension's magical laws while simultaneously trying to reshape them. Be that as it may, Fudge continued, the fact remains that she's an unregistered magical entity with destructive capabilities that exceed most trained aurors. The attack proved she's a liability. The attack proved, a new voice interrupted. Severus Snape, cold and precise, that Miss Maximoff is the only reason this castle is still standing. While you cowered in your office, Minister, she held the building together through force of will while simultaneously fighting off a Dementor army. But do continue explaining how she's a liability. Silence. Then Umbridge's syrupy poison, Professor Snape. Your known sympathies with certain dark elements make your opinions somewhat suspect. My sympathies, Snape said with lethal quiet, lie with protecting students. Something you've spectacularly failed to do while terrorizing them with blood quills and suppressing their education. How dare you? Enough. Dumbledore's voice carried absolute authority. This debate is pointless. Wanda Maximoff is a Hogwarts student under my protection. She will remain here as long as she wishes. If the Ministry disagrees, they are welcome to challenge that decision through proper legal channels. Legal channels take time, Fudge said. Time we may not have. What if Voldemort attacks again? What if? Then we'll be grateful to have someone of Miss Maximoff's capabilities defending the school. Dumbledore's tone softened slightly. Cornelius, I understand your fear. Today was terrifying. But exiling those who protect us because they're powerful is how we lose wars. It's how we lose everything. Footsteps retreated. Voices faded. Then silence, except for the soft breathing of other patients in nearby beds. Wanda waited 5 minutes before whispering, "I know you're still there." The curtain parted. Dumbledore stood there, his blue eyes tired but kind. "I thought you might be awake. How much did you hear?" "Enough." Wanda sat up slowly, ignoring the protests from her healing body. "They want me gone. They want you controlled." Dumbledore conjured a chair and sat with a weary sigh. "Which amounts to the same thing, I suppose. Fear makes cowards of even reasonable people. Will they force the issue? They'll try. Fudge is desperate to appear competent and in control. Arresting or exiling you would serve that narrative. The strong minister protecting Britain from dangerous foreign elements." Dumbledore's expression turned calculating. "But I have leverage, as we discussed. And the parents of 300 students whose children you saved will be difficult to ignore." Wanda studied him. "You're using me. Using what happened today. I'm using the truth of what you did. Yes. Is that wrong?" "I don't know." Wanda's fingers traced patterns on the thin hospital blanket. "Where I come from, governments tried to regulate people like me. Register us, control us, make us accountable to bureaucrats who were terrified of what we represented. It always ended in disaster. Yet you defended this government's students. I defended children. There's a difference." "Is there?" Dumbledore leaned forward. "Wanda, I want to share something with you. Something I've never told another student." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "When I was young, I had a friend, Gellert Grindelwald. We were brilliant together, powerful, and convinced we could reshape the world for the better. For the greater good, we said. But our ambitions led to tragedy. My sister died because of our arrogance. And Gellert became one of history's darkest wizards." Wanda remained silent, sensing this was important. "I spent decades avoiding power after that," Dumbledore continued. "Refusing positions of authority, turning down opportunities to lead, because I didn't trust myself. I thought power had corrupted me once, it would do so again." He met her eyes. "I was wrong. Power doesn't corrupt. Fear of power corrupts. Refusing to use your abilities when they're needed because you're afraid of yourself. That's the real cowardice. You're saying I should embrace what I am. I'm saying you should stop punishing yourself for being powerful. Yes, you've made mistakes, created disasters, hurt people you meant to protect. So have I. So has everyone who's ever tried to do something meaningful." Dumbledore's voice was gentle but firm. "The question isn't whether you're too dangerous to exist. It's whether you'll let that fear paralyze you into uselessness." Before Wanda could respond, footsteps approached, rapid, urgent. Harry burst through the hospital wing doors, followed by Hermione and half the DA. "She's awake," Ron announced unnecessarily. They surrounded her bed, worried faces, relieved smiles, questions tumbling over each other. How was she feeling? Did she need anything? Theodore wanted to thank her. He was still recovering but conscious. The younger students had made cards expressing gratitude. Wanda felt overwhelmed by the genuine affection and concern. She wasn't used to being cared about rather than feared. "The minister wants to arrest you," Harry said bluntly, cutting through the chatter. "We heard Umbridge talking about it. They're planning to use some emergency decree." "Educational Decree 32, Hermione supplied. "Grants the ministry authority to detain individuals deemed immediate threats to magical Britain's security. They're going to claim you're unstable and dangerous." "I am dangerous," Wanda said. "So is Dumbledore," Harry shot back. "So is Voldemort. So is anyone with actual power. That's not the point. The point is you're on our side." "Am I?" Wanda asked quietly. "I'm still trying to find a way home. Once I do, I'm gone. You all know that." Silence fell across the group. Then Luna spoke, her voice dreamy but wise. "You're looking for home in the wrong place. Home isn't a dimension or a universe. It's people, purpose, belonging. You could find your way back to your original world tomorrow and still be lost." The words hit harder than any curse. Because Luna was right. Wanda had been displaced from her dimension. Yes, but she'd been displaced from herself long before that. Since Pietro died, since Sokovia fell, she'd been drifting, searching for something she couldn't name. The ministry vote is tomorrow morning, Hermione said, pulling out notes. They're rushing it through emergency channels. If it passes, you'll be arrested and held pending trial, which could take months or years, given ministry bureaucracy. Can Dumbledore stop it? Not legally. But he's calling in every favor he's owed, pressuring every Wisengamot member he has leverage over. Hermione's expression was troubled. It'll be close. Too close. Harry's jaw clenched. If they come for you, we fight. No, Wanda said immediately. You're children. I won't let you risk yourselves. We're not children anymore. Harry's voice was hard, age beyond his 15 years. We haven't been since Voldemort came back. We've been fighting, training, preparing for war. This is just another battle. Harry's right, Neville said quietly. The usually timid boy had a steel in his expression Wanda recognized. The look of someone who decided to stop being afraid. You protected us. Now we protect you. Around the bed, the DA members nodded in agreement. These students from different houses, different backgrounds, different beliefs, were united in their determination. United by what they'd seen Wanda do, by the choice she'd made to stand and fight when she could have run. If it comes to fighting, Theodore Knott said from a nearby bed where he was recovering, you'll need intelligence. My father's a Death Eater. I might be able to find out what Voldemort's planning. Absolutely not, Hermione interrupted. That's too dangerous. Everything's dangerous now, Theodore said flatly. But I can get information no one else can. Use me or don't, but stop pretending I'm fragile. My family destroyed enough lives. I can at least try to prevent them from destroying more. Wanda saw herself in him. The desperate need to atone, to prove you're more than your worst associations. She also saw the danger. Spying on Death Eaters was how people died. We'll discuss it, she said carefully. But not tonight. Tonight you all need to sleep, heal, and let your professors handle the political maneuvering. They left reluctantly, with promises to return tomorrow and increasingly creative threats about what they'd do to anyone who tried to arrest her. Luna was last to leave, pausing at the door. The stars showed me something, she said in her matter-of-fact way. A choice coming. 2 paths. One leads you home, but leaves you empty. The other keeps you here, but fills you with purpose. Choose wisely, Wanda Maximoff. Choose what you need, not what you think you deserve. Then she drifted out, leaving Wanda alone with Dumbledore again. She's right, you know, Dumbledore said quietly. Tomorrow's vote isn't really about whether you're dangerous. It's about whether you'll accept that this world might need you more than your old one wants you back. How can you say that? Wanda's voice broke slightly. You don't know my world. Don't know what I left behind. I know you were alone there, drifting, searching for purpose after your brother's death and finding only more violence, more missions, more ways to prove your value through destruction. Dumbledore's words were gentle but surgical. I know because I lived it. After Gellert, after my sister, I spent decades in self-imposed isolation, teaching children because I didn't trust myself with anything more. What changed? Tom Riddle became Voldemort. And I realized that sometimes the greatest danger isn't using power. It's refusing to use it when it's desperately needed. Dumbledore stood, preparing to leave. Sleep, Wanda. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges. But know this, whatever you decide, whatever path you choose, you are not alone. Not anymore. He left, and Wanda was finally, truly alone in the quiet hospital wing. She lay back, staring at the ceiling, her chaos magic humming beneath her skin. Tomorrow the Ministry would try to arrest her. Tomorrow she'd have to choose between fighting and fleeing, between this world and her search for home. But tonight, she let herself remember what it felt like to protect people, to stand for something, to matter not because of her power, but because of her choice to use it rightly. In her mind, Pietro smiled. That's my sister, he would have said. Asterisk, always trying to save everyone, even when it costs everything. Asterisk. I learned from the best, Pietro, she whispered to the darkness. Tomorrow would bring its battles. But tonight, For the first time since falling through dimensions, Wanda Maximoff felt like she might actually belong somewhere. Even if that somewhere was a school for witches and wizards in a universe not her own. The Weisengamot chamber was ancient stone and purple-robed judgment. Wanda stood in the center of the circular room, chains clinking at her wrists, not restraining her power, just making a point. 50 wizards and witches sat in tiered seating around her, their faces ranging from curious to hostile to outright terrified. Cornelius Fudge presided from the highest seat, his face arranged in grave concern that didn't quite hide his satisfaction. Umbridge sat to his right, quill poised over parchment. Dumbledore occupied a seat among the Weisengamot members, his expression unreadable. Miss Wanda Maximoff, Fudge intoned, you stand before the Weisengamot charged with being an unregistered dangerous magical entity, unauthorized use of reality-altering magic, and presenting a clear and present danger to the stability of magical Britain. How do you plead? I don't recognize this court's authority over me, Wanda said calmly. I'm not a British citizen. I'm not even from this dimension. You have no jurisdiction. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Fudge's face purpled. You are physically present within our borders, he sputtered. That grants us authority. Then every tourist who visits Britain is subject to emergency detention without trial. Wanda raised her chained hands. Interesting legal precedent. I'm sure the international magical community will be fascinated by your interpretation of sovereignty. A few Weisengamot members shifted uncomfortably. One, a stern woman with iron-gray hair, spoke up. The girl has a point, Cornelius. Our jurisdiction over foreign nationals is limited to actual crimes committed on British soil. Has Miss Maximoff broken any laws? She defended a school under attack, Dumbledore said mildly, standing. Protected students from Dementors and Death Eaters. Prevented Hogwarts from collapsing. If those are crimes, then I should be standing beside her in chains. This isn't about heroism, Umbridge interjected sweetly. It's about control. Miss Maximoff demonstrated reality-warping abilities that exceed any documented magic in Ministry records. She erased a Death Eater from existence. I did what? Wanda interrupted sharply. The Death Eater you gestured at during the battle. He vanished. No body, no trace. You eliminated him from reality itself. Umbridge's smile was poisonous. That's not defense. That's something far darker. Wanda's stomach dropped. She remembered the gesture, remembered the Death Eater disappearing, but she thought he'd apparat away. Had she actually erased him? Her chaos magic had been wild during the battle, fueled by rage and desperation. She might have reduced his probability of existence without even realizing it. I didn't mean to kill anyone, she said quietly. Intent is irrelevant, Fudge declared. The fact remains that you possess uncontrolled power capable of rewriting reality. Allowing you to roam free is unconscionable. Then what do you propose? Wanda's voice was cold. Lock me in a cell? Study me like an experiment? I've been down that road before. It didn't end well for the people who tried. Is that a threat? A wizard demanded. It's a fact. Wanda met his gaze steadily. I was kidnapped and experimented on by an organization called Hydra. They thought they could control me, weaponize me. I killed the doctors who tortured me and burned their facility to the ground. I'm not proud of it, but I won't pretend I regret it either. If you try to imprison me, the outcome will be similar. The chamber erupted in shouted arguments. Half the Weisengamot demanded immediate action. The other half called for restraint. Fudge banged his gavel repeatedly, trying to restore order. Through the chaos, Wanda's eyes found Dumbledore. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read, concern, calculation, and something that might have been pride. The doors to the chamber burst open. Every head turned as Harry Potter strode in, flanked by the entire DA. 30 students in their Hogwarts robes, wands at their sides, faces set in determination. What is the meaning of this? Fudge sputtered. This is a closed hearing. Then you should have closed the doors better, Harry said flatly. He moved to stand beside Wanda, and the other students fanned out around them. We're here to testify on behalf of Wanda Maximoff. Students have no standing in Wisengamot proceedings. We're witnesses to the attack on Hogwarts, Hermione interrupted, stepping forward with a rolled parchment. Under Section 12 of the Wizarding Legal Code, witnesses to events relevant to proceedings have the right to provide testimony. I've brought the relevant statute if you'd like to review it. Fudge looked ready to explode, but several Wisengamot members were nodding. The gray-haired which spoke again. The girl's right, Cornelius. If these students witnessed Miss Maximoff's actions during the attack, their testimony is admissible. Fine, Fudge snapped. But make quick. Harry spoke first, describing the battle in precise detail. How the Dementors had overwhelmed their defenses. How the Death Eaters had targeted students. How Wanda had held the castle together while everyone else evacuated. His voice was steady, factual, devastating in its clarity. Then Neville testified about Wanda's teaching, how she'd helped him improve not through traditional instruction, but by addressing his fear and self-doubt. Hannah Abbott described Wanda's integration into Hufflepuff House, her quiet kindness, her mentorship, her genuine care for fellow students despite her own trauma. Theodore Knott's testimony silenced the room entirely. "My father is a Death Eater," he said, his voice carrying in the sudden quiet. "I grew up surrounded by dark magic, by people who believe power gives them the right to hurt others. Wanda Maximoff has more power than anyone I've ever met, more than my father, more than most people in this room. And she used it to protect students she barely knew, at tremendous cost to herself." He paused, meeting Fudge's eyes. "If you imprison her for being powerful and foreign, you're proving the Dark Lord right. You're proving that this government fears strength more than it values justice. And when the real war comes, not if, when you'll regret driving away someone who could have been our greatest ally." Silence. Then Luna Lovegood drifted forward, her voice dreamy, but her words sharp. "You're all afraid of what she represents. Someone who doesn't fit your categories, who can't be controlled through your laws. But fear isn't wisdom. Wanda Maximoff saved 300 lives 2 days ago. How many lives has this government saved recently?" "That's quite enough," Umbridge said shrilly. "These children have been influenced by Dumbledore's manipulations. These children," McGonagall's crisp voice cut through, "are telling the truth. I was present during the battle. I witnessed Miss Maximoff's actions firsthand. She had multiple opportunities to flee, to save herself while leaving students to die. She chose to stay. She chose to protect." "Professor McGonagall," Fudge said desperately, "surely you understand the danger. I understand that this hearing is a farce designed to punish heroism because it inconveniences your political narrative." McGonagall stood, her voice ringing with authority. "I understand that you're terrified of appearing weak, so you're manufacturing threats to appear strong. And I understand that if you imprison this girl, you'll create the very monster you claim to be preventing." The chamber erupted again. Wisengamot members shouted at each other. Fudge banged his gavel. Umbridge scribbled furiously. And Wanda stood at the center of it all, surrounded by students who'd chosen to stand with her, watching wizards debate her fate like she was a problem to be solved rather than a person. She'd had enough. Enough. Her voice cracked like thunder, amplified by chaos magic that made the chamber's stones vibrate. Everyone fell silent, staring. "I'm done being judged by people who don't know me. Done being treated like a weapon or a threat instead of a person." Red energy began spiraling around her, growing more intense with each word. The chains on her wrist shattered. "You want to know what I am? I'm Wanda Maximoff. I'm an orphan from Sokovia who volunteered for experiments that killed dozens of people because I wanted power to fight injustice. I'm a sister who watched her twin die saving strangers. I'm someone who helped create a genocidal AI and then had to destroy a city to stop it. I carry those sins. I'll carry them forever." The chaos magic intensified, reality warping around her. Some Wisengamot members scrambled back in fear. "But I'm also someone who's learned that power without purpose is just destruction. That strength matters less than how you use it. That sometimes the most important thing you can do is stand between danger and people who can't protect themselves, even if it costs everything." She looked at Harry, at the students who'd stood up for her, at Dumbledore watching with quiet approval. I came to this world by accident. I've been trying to leave since I arrived. But maybe, her voice softened. Maybe I needed to be here. Maybe you needed me too. Not because of my power, but because I understand what it's like to be feared for things you can't control. To be judged by your worst moments instead of your choices. Wanda turned to Fudge. You want to imprison me? Try. But know that I'll fight and people will die. And when the dust settles, you'll have proven that this government is exactly what Voldemort claims. Corrupt, cowardly, and more interested in control than protection. Or, Dumbledore said, standing beside her, you could do something revolutionary. You could trust her. Give her the benefit of doubt you'd extend to any magical person accused without evidence. Let her prove through actions rather than prejudging through fear. The gray-haired witch stood as well. I move to dismiss these charges for lack of evidence of criminal intent or action. Miss Maximoff defended Hogwarts from a terrorist attack. That's not a crime, it's a service. Seconded, another Wisengamot member called. This is outrageous, Fudge began. Call the vote, Cornelius, Dumbledore said quietly. Unless you'd prefer, I release those documents we discussed. Fudge's face went through several colors before settling on sickly pale. Very well. All in favor of dismissing charges. The vote was close, closer than Wanda liked. But when the count finished, dismissal had won by 3 votes. She was free. Fudge slammed his gavel. This hearing is concluded. Miss Maximoff, you are released, but be warned, the Ministry will be watching you closely. One misstep, and you'll be back in this chamber. I look forward to it, Wanda said dryly. As the Wisengamot dispersed, the students surrounded her in a rush of relieved chatter and congratulations. Harry clapped her shoulder. Hermione was already planning follow-up legal strategies in case the Ministry tried again. Ron was explaining to anyone who'd listen how brilliant the testimony had been. Dumbledore approached last, his eyes twinkling with their usual mischief restored. That was quite a speech. Had you prepared it? Every word was spontaneous terror, Wanda admitted. The best speeches usually are. Dumbledore's expression turned serious. You mentioned that perhaps you needed to be here. Have you reconsidered your desire to return home? Wanda looked at the students, her house, her friends, her cause. She thought about Hogwarts, about teaching the DA, about the purpose she'd found in protecting people who needed her. Then she thought about the Avengers, about Vision and Steve Rogers and the team she'd left behind. About her world, her responsibilities there, the life she'd been building before chaos magic tore her away. I don't know, she said honestly. Part of me still wants to go back. But part of me, she trailed off, unable to finish. Wants to stay, Luna supplied, appearing beside them. Because here you're not just the Scarlet Witch, weapon of the Avengers. You're Wanda, Hufflepuff 5th year who teaches defensive magic and protects students and belongs to something. I can't abandon my world. You're not abandoning it by accepting that you might have a purpose here too, Dumbledore said gently. The multiverse is vast, Wanda. Perhaps you're meant to exist in multiple realities, helping where you're needed most. Perhaps that's your true power, not just manipulating reality, but bridging them. Before Wanda could respond, Theodore approached, supported by a medical levitation charm. Thank you, he said simply, for saving my life, and for showing me that power doesn't have to corrupt. Thank you for testifying, Wanda replied. That took courage. I learned from the best. Theodore's smile was brief but genuine. As they left the Ministry building together, students, professors, and one-dimensional refugee who'd somehow become their champion, Wanda felt something shift inside her. Not a decision, not yet, but the beginning of one. She'd come to this world, searching for a way home. Maybe she'd found something better, a reason to stay, even if just for a while longer. Outside, London's magical district bustled with evening activity. Wizards and witches went about their lives, unaware of how close they'd come to civil war in that chamber. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of crimson and gold. Harry walked beside her, quiet for once. Finally he spoke, what you said in there about carrying your sins forever. I understand that. I've made mistakes too. Gotten people killed. Sometimes I wake up and all I can see are the faces of people I couldn't save. How do you live with it? I try to save the next person. And the one after that. It doesn't erase the past, but it gives the present meaning. Harry's green eyes were old beyond his years. You're going to leave eventually, aren't you? Find your way back to your world. Probably, if I can figure out how. Then make the time you're here matter. Teach us everything you can. Help us survive what's coming. And when you do leave, he smiled slightly. We'll remember the witch who fell from the sky and chose to stand with us anyway. Wanda looked at this 15-year-old carrying destiny like a curse, fighting battles he shouldn't have to fight, and made a choice. I'll stay, she said, until we win this war or I find a way home, whichever comes first. I'll teach, I'll fight, and I'll do everything I can to make sure you all survive. Harry's smile widened into something genuine. That's all anyone can ask. That night, in the Hufflepuff common room, surrounded by plants and firelight and students who'd become friends, Wanda Maximoff accepted a truth she'd been avoiding. Home wasn't a place. It wasn't a dimension or a reality. It was people who saw you, accepted you, and stood beside you when everything burned. And for now, for this moment, Hogwarts was home enough. The war was far from over. Voldemort still gathered power in shadows, recruiting Death Eaters and building his army. The Ministry remained corrupt and compromised, more interested in political games than protecting citizens. And Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch from another dimension, stood at the center of it all, a wild card neither side could predict or control. But she was no longer alone, no longer drifting without purpose or belonging. In Hufflepuff House, she'd found loyalty. In the DA, she'd found purpose. In students like Harry Potter, Theodore Nott, and Luna Lovegood, she'd found proof that heroism wasn't about perfection. It was about choosing to protect others, even when the cost was everything. Her chaos magic had stabilized, adapting to this dimension's rules while retaining its essential nature. She could feel it growing stronger, more precise, as if the universe itself was accepting her presence. Dumbledore theorized she might eventually be able to navigate dimensions at will, but that was theoretical. For now, she was here, committed to the fight ahead. The students trained harder after the attack. The DA's numbers swelled. Even some Slytherins joined, recognizing that survival mattered more than house politics. Wanda taught them her philosophy of combat: intent over technique, belief over doubt, protection over destruction. And late at night, when the common room was empty and the fire burned low, Wanda would stand at the round window watching stars that weren't her stars, in a sky that wasn't her sky, and wonder if Pietro could see her somehow across dimensional barriers. I found it, Pietro, she'd whisper. Asterisk, a place where I can be more than a weapon. Where my power protects instead of destroys. Where I matter for who I am, not what I can do. Asterisk. The wind through the grass outside never answered. But sometimes, just sometimes, Wanda felt warmth that might have been her brother's approval, reminding her that heroism ran in their blood. The Scarlet Witch had come to the Harry Potter universe by accident. But she would stay by choice, fighting a war that wasn't hers, protecting a world not her own, until every student who'd stood beside her survived. And when the final battle came, when Voldemort made his move and reality itself hung in the balance, Wanda Maximoff would stand ready. Not as the Avenger she'd been, but as something new, a bridge between worlds, a protector of the powerless, and a witch who'd learned that home wasn't where you came from. It was where you chose to fight.